solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give in this case now before this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. Please state your full name and spell your first and last name.
Rodney Almendinger, last name Almandinger, first name Rodney, Rodney.
And your occupation.
Self-employed.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Calhoun.
Good morning, Mr. Almendinger. First of all, you said you're self-employed. Tell the jurors what you do for a living.
I'm a glass artist.
And how long have you been doing that?
18 years, 15, 18 years.
And what type of things do you manufacture?
Windows, sun catchers, yard art, things like that.
And how long have you lived in the Matsu Valley?
Since 93. Don't make me add that.
All right. And have you lived at the same place or not?
No.
Where do you currently live? Which area?
In Palmer.
And just, I'm not gonna ask you for a specific address, but general location in Palmer?
Noisy Goose Cafe area.
And how long have you lived at that particular house?
I don't know, 8 years.
And who do you live with at that place?
With my mother.
And how old's your mother?
75.
And what's her name?
Myler.
And who else has lived in your house in the past?
Me, my children, my wife at the time, other children, brothers, sisters.
And as far as your mother, is she still in good health as far as being able to take care of herself or not?
It's a little going down. We're on oxygen now.
Let me talk more about 2016 because we're going to be focusing on that. And what was her health condition at that time?
2016. Still highly diabetic, lots of, medication for heart, high blood pressure.
So do you take care of her essentially?
I do.
And was that the same case in the year 2016?
Yep.
Now, you have a son by the name of Eric Almendinger, is that correct?
Yep.
All right. And in November of 2016, how old was he?
16.
And his mother, who is his mother?
Crystal.
And in November of 2016, was he living with you or not?
Yes, he'd been living with me.
And on a regular basis, or
He was on a regular basis.
did he live with his mother before
Up until about June, July.
of that year?
Yep.
And what's the mother's full name? Crystal Almendinger, or she go by me?
Carlson or something.
Okay. And so were you divorced? Were you and
Yeah.
Eric Almendinger's mother divorced, all right? And then did she have custody first?
Yep.
For how long did she have custody? For a long time?
She still has custody. Well, he's 18 now, so nothing, but
And does she live in the valley or does she live?
she does. She lives in Wasilla.
In November of 2016, was Eric Almendinger going to school?
Yep.
Which school was he attending?
Pathways.
And how far away is Pathways from your house?
Well, if I'm driving it, probably, I don't know. I'm horrible with distance. I'd say like 5 or 6 miles. It's a 10-minute drive.
And when did he start attending Pathways, do you know?
I don't know.
Which schools did he attend before Pathways?
Colony High.
And do you know, like, he was in Colony through which year in school? Was he a sophomore?
Ended, he had apparently, no, I have no clue. 16 was the last year that I know of.
Right. And like, tell me again, during the summer of 2016, was he living with you or with Crystal or elsewhere?
Go ahead, Jack.
What I was getting at is, in the summer of 2016, were there times where Eric Allmendinger was on his own, so to speak?
Yes.
And when did he actually come to live with you at your place? To the best of your recollection.
I want to say September.
And when he came in September of 2016, did he live at your house
Yes.
or
Lived in my house.
inside the house?
Lived in the trailer until I got the other two out of the house. My other son and his girlfriend out of the house and into their own place, which was the 1st of October.
And your other son is older than your son Eric? And he was living with you, he
Yep.
and his girlfriend were living with you?
Yes.
And then you think October was the transition?
October 1st, that's when I'm pretty sure that's when he moved into the apartment.
And so therefore, you said your son Eric came there in about September of 2016?
Yeah, about September, maybe the end of, there wasn't over till whatever day that is, the 5th or something, so shortly thereafter.
And did he live in the camper first?
Yes,
All right. And when I say camper, you know what I'm referring to.
right.
Describe what you're referring to.
It's just a travel trailer, pulled behind the truck, not on the truck, behind it.
And who did it belong to?
Me and my mom,
And what did you use it for?
for work purposes.
How long did you have it?
I was on the 2nd season.
And when you say used it for work purposes, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, what
I
is-
travel from city to city, up and down the state, going to craft shows, and that's what I stay in,
So was this a functional camper trailer?
for the most part, yes.
Yeah, we know it's a little bit older, right? But
Yes.
like, for example, can you plug it in, lights inside
Right.
that would work, right? And how about the other stuff, like bathroom, kitchen, was all that?
Bathroom worked, I just didn't want to, everywhere I went had a bathroom, so there was no point in filling it full of water if you're not gonna use it.
Okay. Now, when Eric Allmendinger lived there and started living in the camper in September, did anybody else stay with him in the camper or not?
I brought in another kid, David Evans. When those two were through the summer living wherever they were living, I got Eric to come home, but his only stipulation was to bring David, because he didn't want to leave David out
Out without a home?
out without a home.
Okay.
And so he didn't make me. I mean, it wasn't much of an arm bender. I've helped other kids before.
Right. And did you know David from before?
I did not really. I mean, he showed up a couple times during the summer, but
And we're talking about David Evans?
yeah.
And did you agree to let David Evans stay there?
Yep, with stipulations.
What were the stipulations?
You're either gonna get a job or you're gonna go back to school.
All right. And which one did David agree to?
School,
And did he go to the same school as your son Eric?
yep.
And after your other son moved out of the downstairs of your house, Did David and Eric Almendinger move into the house?
Yes, they did.
And they still were abiding by the rule of going to pathways?
Oh, yeah. I drove them to school every morning.
And so after David Evans and Eric Almendinger moved into the house, what did you do with the camper trailer?
Say that again? Oh,
After-
what I
after-
do with it, I covered it with the tarp and locked it, and then moved it to the backyard from the driveway
And locked it, how do you lock the camper trailer?
with the key.
You have the key. And you said you moved it a little bit also?
Well, it was in the front yard, in the front driveway. I just moved it to the back.
So was that like winterizing it?
Yeah.
You tarped it so that snow wouldn't get into it? And did you have the tarp bungeed or roped off?
Yep.
And what instructions did you give David Evans and Eric Almendinger about the trailer after they moved into the house?
They didn't need to be in the trailer, so you don't need to be in the trailer. You're in the house now. That's where you're staying.
All right. And at this point, is the weather getting colder?
Yes.
And was there a source of heat in the trailer?
Space heater. Little space heater you plugged in.
Plug into electrical?
Yeah.
But your intent was not to have anybody in that camper after the two of them moved into the house?
Right. Only if there was stuff to get out of it, because I kept video games in there, movies in there, stuff like that. Sometimes we get in it to get, those out.
All right, now let me ask you some questions about the condition of the trailer, when you winterized it or cinched it up for the winter. I mean, was it a fairly orderly condition? I mean, the jurors saw the trailer, obviously the police have been through there, it's in a state of disarray right now. But was it in a somewhat orderly condition when you saw it on the day when you tarped it?
Yeah.
All right, what was in there, when you locked it up?
Sleeping bags, food, video games, TVs, generator, cleaning supplies.
How about the bathroom? Did you look in the toilet? Was the toilet clean when you cinched it up or not?
It was 2 years, when I bought it. I mean, not,
No, but I mean, did you see whether there was like any water in the toilet itself or any human waste in the toilet itself?
I've never looked in it.
Oh, so, okay, all right. And when you cinched it up, tell us about the floor. What type of floor does the camper trailer have? And whether there were any rugs on the floor?
Any what on the floor? Oh, it just had a rope rug at the door and then a runner rug right down the center.
All right. Now, when you say down the center, you mean along the kitchen part of it, down the center?
Yeah,
Well, that's about the only center.
it's
it
the
has.
only, you only have one path.
Now, I noticed that when you look at that camper trailer, there, if you look at the floor pattern, it kind of juts out to where the dining, there's a little seating area or dining area. Are you saying the rug was just a runner that went straight and did not cover that dining area?
Right.
Okay. You remember what kind of rug it was as far as color?
Brown, I think.
And do you remember if it had a rubber backing? Remember anything about the backing of the?
I have no idea. I never really picked up the rug.
All right. And before the police took the trailer, I don't know if, do you remember the day they took it or not?
I don't know the date.
All right, it's not that important, but before they took it, did you go into the trailer before they took it? So I'm talking between the time you covered it with the tarp and the time they took it. Did you do anything in the trailer or not?
There's been, I think, 2 times. Not quite, it's been a couple years now, so I'm not quite entirely sure, other than, one event I came back from, the door, it looked like it'd been opened. I just opened it, looked in, and see nothing, closed the door.
And what time, what month are we talking about here?
That, I think, was in November, because I think that's when I did my Kenai trip.
And now, let me turn your attention, let's hone in a little bit on November. November 13th, 2016 was a Sunday. And that's when, I mean, we'll get into November 13th, obviously. That's when you started getting phone calls from people. Do you remember when you say you looked at the trailer, you saw that somebody had gotten into it, was that after November 13th that you were making these observations, or before?
Before,
All right. And so, on that day before the 13th, what did you notice did you notice the door had been pried?
that the door doesn't really, it's got a big gap, so you don't really have to work at it, but I have a key, so I don't really worry about it, but, yeah.
Right. You know, and all those pry marks that are on the frame of the camper now, were those there when you had the camper or not?
I'm gonna say yeah, because the camper's pretty beat,
Yeah.
so I have no idea what Glenn did before it, you know. Because
Person had it.
when Glenn died, it sat there underneath the tree for 2 seasons before I got it.
All right, but that day before November 13th, when you noticed, it was the gap you noticed, really?
And the door, it just seemed to me like it was out a little bit more, so I just pushed it back in, that's how flimsy it
Was
is.
the tarp still over it on that day?
Yep. Tarp had been over it the whole time until
Alright.
they picked it up.
So were there any other times before the police took it that you noticed anything unusual, or did you do anything with the trailer at all?
The only thing before they took it was when we had the calls of the missing child.
Right, right.
Because of other conversations with them, I decided that I would open the door, look in there, and say, is anybody in here? Because who knows if he's hiding out,
So
you
you
know.
think that would have been pretty close to the 13th? Was it that evening that you did that, or the day after?
No, that was afterwards.
All right. You didn't see anybody hiding in there, right?
No,
Did you notice anything different about the trailer?
I didn't go eyeballing it all out. I just was looking for a human body and then closed the door.
Was the rug still in there when you?
I have not a clue.
All right. Did you take the rug out of the trailer after November 13th, 2000?
I have never moved the rug.
Did you do any cleaning or bleaching of the trailer after November 13th?
Nope.
2016? Okay. Did you have some cleaning or bleaching solutions at your house during that time?
Yep,
Where were they usually kept?
they're kept in my bathroom.
But you didn't do any cleaning or removing of anything
Nope,
after the 13th, as far as the trailer goes, correct?
right.
Okay. And as far as you knew, Eric Almendinger and David Evans were living in the house, not in the trailer, in November of 2016, correct?
Right.
Now, okay. What I'm gonna ask you to do, on the paper easel next to you, I'm gonna ask you to just do the layout of your property and the buildings, because we have photographs, but we don't have like a mesh of photographs to show the relationship of all the buildings to each other. So to the best of your ability, if you can just draw the street, and I know there's your house, there's the attached garage to your house, which has a kind of a cover in between the two. There's the new garage and a shed, right?
Yep,
And then the trailer, if you can put the trailer in the position it was on the evening of November 13th, 2016. So if you just wanna take a moment, without talking, to just draw those things, and then, we'll slide it closer to you, and you can use the microphone and explain to the jury what you drew. So just take a few minutes and.
my road, this is
Okay,
the
let me
garage.
get you back by the microphone here. I'm gonna slide this a little bit. Alright, maybe if you can put the microphone right here, it should pick both of us up. And, if you, I'm gonna mark this with our most recent exhibit. This is gonna be state's proposed exhibit number 270 eventually, once we put the sticker on there. But, all right, so Mr. Almaninger, I see you're standing by what's gonna be state's proposed exhibit number 270, which is the drawing you've made. So let's start out with, give us an idea of the streets, like, just say which one is the street that you're facing and which one is the other street.
This is the main road coming down, this is our street here. This is the driveway. This is the two-car garage. You drive in it from the backside. There's an opening here. This is the house. You have an opening here. And it's, I call it a three-level house because you've got a basement, a main floor, and then a top floor.
So H is main house, G is the older garage that's partially attached to the house, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and NG is the new garage,
Yes.
and is that a bigger garage, or tell me a little bit about that?
It's a two-car garage. It's a little longer, so that way my truck can fit in it. And then whatever else in it, half of it is to be my truck, and the other half is to be my workshop.
And that was a more recent addition to the property? Okay. And then, S, what does S stand for there?
That's the shed,
And what's the purpose of that outbuilding? What do you keep in there?
lawnmower, four-wheeler, all the junk that was in this garage
All right.
in there.
And is that a more recent addition also?
Yes, that was earlier in the year, this was later.
And then you have the kind of circular oval shape.
That's the
there.
trailer.
All right. And was that the position that the trailer was in on November 13th, 2016?
Roughly,
Yeah. Okay.
it's easy to keep it at an angle. This is kind of a tight spot to pull the truck into, and I got a big, long truck.
So would you back the trailer in?
Yes.
Between the two garages and position it over there?
Yeah, I have to have a kid help me direct it.
All right. And like in the house, you said your son Eric and David Evans eventually moved to the downstairs, correct?
Right.
And then do you occupy the main floor,
No, the downstairs.
the downstairs? You're in downstairs too?
Yep.
Okay. And then do you have a workshop like for your art?
I do in this corner right here of the house, down in the basement. I'm over in this corner over here, and Eric's over in this corner over here.
And does your mother live all the way upstairs?
Way upstairs, yep.
And what would happen, what's on that the middle floor?
Kitchen, computer room, kind of a guest room. It's a bedroom for when my brother comes.
So from the house, are there any windows facing the trailer or the new garage from the house or not?
From the garage,
From the main house?
from the main house,
Are there any windows facing where you can see the trailer or the new garage?
there is a window, but it's always covered because it's a drafty window, so it's
Okay.
always, the blinds are never open. But if you were to have it open, you would have to get up and look like this to get to the window to see the trailer, and you might be able to see the garage.
And that's on the middle level of the house?
Yeah.
And is that in the kitchen or is the
That's
family
the-
room there?
That's the computer room.
Okay. But the work you do it not in your new garage, you do it in your house, right?
No power,
No power in the new garage?
right, there was that brand new, there was new power, I just got that.
Mm. Okay, I've now marked it, state's proposed exhibit number 270. There was a witness who provided some testimony, Kyle Pratt, he said that he was a neighbor of yours. Can you tell me which direction, just use an arrow maybe, and tell me which direction his house is in?
Over here, but it's really, here's the shed, he's really over here, and these are all trees.
Okay, so there's a row of trees between you and your neighbor?
Yep.
All right, I would, thank you with, concerning that, I would move for the admission of state's proposed exhibit number 270.
No objection. So admitted. Now I want to turn your attention to some admitted exhibits and some proposed exhibits, and again, it's back to the layout of your place. So turning your attention to State's exhibit number 72, can you tell us what's depicted in that exhibit?
That's the house, and that's the older garage.
And is that your mother in the picture? That's-
Probably.
That's the best I can do with the focus, I think. Let's see. I don't think that's really helping the focus much, but, all right. And then turn your attention to State's proposed exhibit number 73.
Oh, this is downstairs at the back. That's the entryway into the basement there.
But you don't usually use this spot to get into the house?
Yes and no.
All right.
I mean, I go in and out of it because I have dogs.
Is there a door in the on the back side?
Yes.
And where was it?
Underneath this balcony inside the covered area.
So where's the door? Is it right here?
That's the door to the covered area, yes.
And then there's another door?
And there's another door to the house.
All right, thank you. Again, I'm getting some light reflection there, off the instrument,
Yeah,
but,
I know where we're at.
and is that show the state's proposed exhibit number 74, does that show the new garage?
That shows the new garage.
And where there's a light, some things against, is that the old garage where I'm pointing?
Old garage.
Right. And this new garage, is there a man door or two?
Right where your finger is,
Yes,
on that side, there's a door.
closer to that corner?
Yes.
Okay. And so the trailer, would you back the trailer up in this
Into that
area?
hole, yes. There's a tree right there too, so
Right.
two trees, yeah.
I'm gonna just try something. That might be a little bit better. I don't know, just using the natural light in the courtroom.
We just blame Tony.
What's that?
We just blame Tony on the photon.
Is that, well, I'll show you, these are better than the screen, but we lose a lot of the clarity in the screen, but
State's proposed exhibit number 76. Can you tell us what's depicted there?
That's the trailer,
Okay.
and that's the shed.
And is this the position the trailer was in on November 13th, 2016?
Yep.
And this cord here, was that cord going?
I commercial fish for 20 years. I call it line, the rest of the world calls it rope. But that's how I've been crown line.
Oh, okay, I thought that might have been electrical cord, so,
No, there were no electrical cords to that as far as I can remember, because nobody's supposed to be using it, so.
and this building here, is that the new shed?
Yep.
All right. I would move for the admission of 76.
I think it has.
Oh, it has, all right. State's exhibit number 79. Is that, Melissa, can you tell me, is that proposed or admitted? Okay, State's exhibit number 79, do you recognize that?
Yeah, the side of the trailer.
And again, is that accurately depict the trailer?
Yeah,
Okay, and is this the door to the?
that's the door.
Right. And that's the, again, it's in place where it was on your property when this photograph was taken?
Yep.
Give me a moment, just gotta look at our exhibit list. 74 been admitted. Now I'm getting to just a few exhibits that have not been admitted yet. State's proposed exhibit number 75. Do you recognize that?
That's the old garage.
Move to admit number 75.
So admitted.
State's proposed exhibit number 77. What does that show?
Front of the trailer.
And does it appear to be the condition it was in November of 2016?
Yep,
And right here is the tarp, is that the tarp off the trailer?
yep.
Move for the admission of 77.
So admitted.
And the last one, as far as the property photographs, State's proposed exhibit number 78. Can you tell us what that shows?
The other side of the trailer.
And again, this is the tarp that you had over it.
It's a carport cover, yeah.
And for this camper trailer, there's only one door, correct?
Only one door.
And do you know, was the door lockable from the inside or not?
Yes,
And how was it lockable from the inside, if you recall?
push button.
Okay, as best as you recall?
Yeah,
And the bathroom door in the trailer swings out into the trailer, because the bathroom's pretty small, correct?
yeah. I have another trailer, so I have to try to remember which one does what.
All right. I would move for the admission of State's proposed exhibit number 78.
So admitted.
While I'm up here, let me turn to the next topic of my examination of you, and that is the run some people by you. First of all, State's exhibit number 22. Is that your son, Eric?
Yep.
And State's exhibit number 23. Do you recognize that person?
Yes,
And is that the defendant in this case?
it is.
All right. And how did you know him?
Apparently, he and Eric met at school.
Again.
Okay, well,
I guess, let me hear what Mr. Stoller has to say.
talk about, let's distinguish before, in the time period before November 13th of 2016 and after. Had you met Dominic Johnson before November 13th, 2016?
Yes,
And did you meet him at your house or someplace else?
at school and then came to my house.
And how many times had he been to your house before November 13th, 2016?
A few times.
A few times, all right, so you definitely knew him, right?
Yeah,
And did you know him as a friend of Eric's?
yes,
And did he stay at your house after November 13th, 2016?
I think so, yes.
Turning your attention to State's Exhibit number 24, do you recognize the person in that photograph?
Yes.
And how did you know that person?
Well, at first.
And by what name, too? Let's put the name first.
At first, I only knew him as Andrew. And now after the night, let's say, of the arrest, then I found out what his real name was, which was Austin.
But you knew Austin Barrett as Andrew? That's what he went by? And had you met him before November 13th, 2016?
I think so. I'm pretty sure I have, because during the course of the summer, a couple times.
And had he been by your house before November 13th, 2016?
Yeah.
And I correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me like because you are self-employed, you're at your house a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like almost every day, except when you're traveling to the shows, correct? Okay. And did Austin Barrett or Andrews, you knew him, also stay at your house after November 13th, 2016?
Yes,
And did you know him as a friend of your son's?
yes.
Turning your attention to State's Exhibit number 25, there are probably some pictures that are more recent that we have of this individual, but tell me, do you recognize him?
Yes,
And did you know him before November 13th, 2016?
unfortunately, yes.
All right. And did you also know him through your son?
Yeah, yes, through the entire group. but
Right. And was he at your house previously, before November 13th?
Oh, yeah.
How about after? Did Bradley Renfro come to your house after November
The night
13th?
of the arrest, he was there.
And again, you knew him as one of your son's friends,
Yeah.
but he didn't live at your house, correct?
Huh?
He didn't live at your house on a regular
Oh,
basis.
God,
And Andrew didn't also, correct?
no.
And Dominic Johnson didn't either, right?
No,
It was just David Evans that
right.
was there in
I
2000.
have enough room to take in more homeless kids.
Okay. Now, turning your attention to David Evans, State's proposed exhibit number 26, but I assume you know who that is, correct? Okay. Is that a photograph of David Evans?
Yes,
Now, did you know him before letting him stay at your house in the fall of 2016?
I'm pretty sure he'd been at the house with the group a couple times during the month of July.
So you had met him before you let him stay at your house, correct?
I had met everybody, but that doesn't mean I met everybody. I mean, I saw them,
Right?
I fed them, let them bathe, and then off they went to the team on four-wheelers and motorcycles.
And then State's Exhibit number 27, do you recognize the person depicted in that photograph?
Oh, yeah.
And what is that person's name?
Devin Peterson.
Had you met Devin Peterson before November 13th, 2016?
Oh, yeah.
And how many times do you figure you met him?
I really can't tell. There was more than a handful of times.
And had he been at your house before?
Yeah.
All right. He never lived at your house, correct?
No,
Do you know if he had been at, so we know, you said he'd been at your house before November 13th, 2016, a number of times. Had he been at your house after November 13th, 2016?
after November 13th, has he been at my house?
Correct.
No. If he did, I never saw him.
No, all right. And as far as the degrees of friendship, all these individuals that I've showed you, and this is from your personal knowledge, not what your son may have told you, from your personal observations, was your son, Eric Almendinger, better friends with some of these individuals than others, or can you not answer?
David Evans.
Okay.
At this point, it was David Evans.
All right. But did it change? Like, sometimes kids, some years they're friends with certain people, next year they're no longer friends with them, but they're,
Right, he was friends with this one,
Devin?
Devin, for 16, 17, he was no longer allowed, so 2015, they were friends for a while.
All right. And how about so we've covered David Evans and we've covered Devin Peterson. How about Dominic Johnson, Andrew, Austin Barrett, and Bradley Renfro? Did you perceive any differences in degrees of friendship as far as between your son Eric and those individuals?
I did, because we didn't see him as much.
As much as, well, David was living at your place.
David was living there.
All right.
But for the others, Brad, Dominic, and Andrew, Austin, didn't see him as much until
All right.
afterwards.
So as far as your impression or your perception, they were just all about equally friends, generally friends?
Boy, that's a hard one to answer. I mean, I can go two different ways on that, because Eric was trying to focus more on school and move away from his friends and deal with more at school.
All right. And I take it that your son Eric, I understand he had a tablet which he used kind of as his,
With
computer,
Brad's tablet.
computer and communication device. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
All right. And I take it that you did not monitor that device regularly to see who he's communicating with?
no, nobody does.
And from the sounds of it, you did not have a problem with him hanging out with David Evans and Dominic Johnson and Bradley Renfro and Austin Barrett before November 13th, 2016?
Bradley was not allowed at the house, and I didn't want to ever see him. So that's not who he was supposed to hang out with, but
At what time did you come up with that rule?
August,
Of 2016?
yep.
All right. How about Austin Barrett? Was he allowed?
Yeah, because he wasn't,
And I don't need the reasons, but just as far as your
he
rules.
was still allowed.
How about Dominic Johnson? Was he allowed?
Yeah, he was still allowed.
All right. And how about Devin Peterson?
He was not allowed.
And when did he get banned from your house?
2015, December.
Okay. And again, I don't need just like who you let come to the house and who you didn't let come to us. Did you communicate these rules to your son, Eric Almendinger?
Yes,
Did you clearly communicate those rules?
yes.
And in addition, so I understand the rule was that Devin Peterson, not allowed at your house, Bradley Renfro, not allowed at your house. How about your son associating with them outside the house? Did you personally communicate any of those rules to your son, Eric Almendinger?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So was there likewise a rule that he was not allowed to associate with Bradley Renfro?
Right,
And that was your rule?
yeah,
And you communicated it clearly to him?
I did.
And was it about the same time you told him that he wasn't allowed on your property?
Right.
And same thing with Devin Peterson. Did you communicate to your son that he was not to associate with Devin Peterson,
Right.
in addition to Devin Peterson not being allowed on your property? Okay, and then did you feel those communications were clear?
Yep.
I want to ask you, since we're still on the topic of, we're still laying the foundation for before the relationships and the layout of your place before November 13th, 2016, let me ask you about firearms. Did you have any firearms on your property?
I do, yes.
And can you, for this one, can you tell me specifically what type of firearms you had and where they were located in 2016?
I have a 44 mag, which was under passenger seat in the truck. 30-06 in my, and everything else was in my room. So the 30-06, the 410 interchangeable 22 rifle, and a 7mm, and a pellet rifle.
And I know different households have different rules about guns. What type of rules did you have in the house about your son Eric having access to your firearms?
Well, you gotta ask before you touch my guns, but nobody hunts, so I never really had to worry. I'm the only one that ever did any hunting.
Had you ever taken him shooting before with any of your firearms or no?
No,
No. And were you ever familiar that he had any personal firearms?
I didn't know he had any.
Let me be a little bit more specific. I'm going to turn your attention to State's Exhibit number 3, which is a Ruger 40 caliber semi-automatic pistol. Did you ever see this in your house?
Never.
Or did you ever see this in your son's possession?
No,
Or did you ever see any photographs or other evidence that your son possessed this gun at your house?
I've never seen anything, not until after everything.
All right. And also turning your attention to State's Exhibit number 1, which is a Springfield XDM 9mm semi-automatic pistol. Did you ever see this firearm at your house?
Nope.
Okay. Or did you see, you ever see any photographs or other evidence of your son possessing this firearm at your house?
My son's possession, no.
Okay. But have you ever seen this pistol before at your house or no?
Not at my house, no.
Where do you think you saw it?
Only after the fact, after all the arrests and stuff. I'm not entirely sure, but
Well, this is the murder weapon. I'm asking if he's ever seen the murder weapon before.
After the fact.
But after the fact means after the murder, it's still relevant to the events. I'm not talking about.
I will overrule it, go ahead.
So let me clarify, Mr. Almendinger, I'm not talking about court or newspapers or whatever. I'm
Right.
talking about like you, before the police seized this, which I believe was on December 6, 2016. Did you ever see it before December 6, 2016?
no.
So back to rules, did you have any rules about your son actually possessing his own firearms? Or was that never, did it never really come up
It never come up.
because it wasn't an issue?
It's never been an issue. The only kid I had that owns like his own gun is my oldest one.
And when David Evans and your son lived inside the house, you say it was on the same floor that you lived on, right?
Right,
So did they have their own bedroom and did you have your own bedroom?
right.
And was there a common hallway or a bathroom?
Yep, there's a The one hallway connects them all, runs right down the center.
Right, and during, let's say before November 13th, let's say in the weeks preceding November 13th, how much time did you spend in the bedroom they were using? Did you poke around there a lot, or not really?
I don't poke around, no.
And as far as.
I've never had a reason to poke around.
All right, so as far as any reason to do a parental search of that room, you didn't feel that there was anything that would have flagged that type of activity on your part?
Nope, I just open the door, if it ain't clean, clean it. I don't make your bed, I'll do your laundry and I'll throw it on your bed, but you put it away.
So you didn't see anything, like when you were walking, you didn't see anything that would raise any kind of red flags on your part as far
No.
as what they were doing, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Now, I do understand that, that there were some truancy issues, is that right, as far as people not going to school? Or eventually?
Eventually.
All right. There come a time when David Evans just left the house.
Left the house for a week, the week before, exactly the week before.
So we're talking about, and that is the calendar that you're referring to of November of 2016 and December.
Yep,
You're saying the week of the 6th, he was
Yep.
gone?
yep,
What day did he leave? Do you remember?
that day, the 6th, Sunday, he left it Sunday. I reminded him he's got school the next day.
Okay, and, so were you, I'm not gonna ask you what he said, but were you expecting him to show back up sometime the 6th to go to school on the next day?
Yep,
Okay, did he show up that
No.
evening? And how long was he gone?
entire week. He showed up the 13th.
Now, how about, let's talk about your son Eric. Did he also have school attendance issues?
He was having some issues, being sick, yeah.
Yeah, and what type of, physical issues did he have?
Stomach problems,
What's that?
always, stomach
Stomach
problems.
issues?
Yeah, always had them as a kid.
And were you doing your best to make sure that he was attending school?
Yep,
Like, so for example, did he walk to school, did you drive him to school?
I drove him to school and told him to stay as long as he possibly could. And if I get a call from the nurse, then I get a call from the nurse.
And did you pick him up from school, or did he walk home
I go pick him up.
every day?
Not every day.
We're talking about the fall of 2016. I don't know when school started. School starts pretty early, right?
Yeah, in August.
Yeah, but he came, and was Eric Almendinger already with you in August of 2016, or did he come, did he switch from his mother's house to your house during the school, after the school year had started?
He wasn't in school. Apparently, I don't know, just from what I heard, is that she had enrolled him in school, but
He doesn't know the answer, he's going on hearsay.
So, well, let me ask you what you
They
did.
lay a
That's fair.
foundation.
That's fair. So when you enrolled him in Pathways, school had already started?
right.
Okay, got it. And after David Evans left, did your son Eric Almendinger continue to attend Pathways?
Yes.
And I guess we're talking that week of the 6th, on a regular basis, or what can you tell us about that particular week?
Pretty much was on a regular basis that whole week while Evans was gone.
Let's turn our attention to that Sunday, November 13th, 2016. Were you home on that day?
Oh, yes,
Was your mother home on that day?
yes,
Was your son Eric Almendinger home on that day?
yes,
Was anybody else there in the beginning of the day or not?
no.
And tell me what was generally going on in your household that early during that day?
I'm working on a client order, window order, and a fireplace mantle order, trying to get it done.
In your workshop downstairs in your house?
You know,
And you know what your mother was doing or not?
probably spinning or knitting upstairs
And your son?
in his bedroom.
And do you know what he was doing necessarily or not?
At one point, I know he was playing World of Warcraft, so,
But and there was gonna be school the next day, correct?
yep.
All right, and were there any other plans for later in the day as far as what the family was gonna do? Like, do you have dinner at a certain hour?
No,
No?
no, if I'm busy working on a client order like that, as big as this one was, I will go up, make dinner, and then it's free for all.
And were you like pushing a deadline on this order or not?
I was, yep,
And when was your deadline for the order?
by the end of the month. I was actually trying to get it done by the next week.
All right, and this particular work, I'm gonna ask you what you were doing in particular, because I wanna know if like your, you know, if that impeded your ability to observe and hear what was going on in the house. So tell us like more specifically what you were working on and what you were doing.
It was a order about window almost the size of your table. And lots of mini pieces, big pieces, small pieces, and it takes concentration to shape, trace it out, get every little piece to fit within the pattern.
Is this stained glass?
Yes,
Is it
stained glass.
How's it joined?
Huh?
How's it joined?
With copper foil and lead cane.
And are you, so are you using like torches or, I mean, do you have any?
I have a grinder that makes a lot of noise. I have two grinders, one with a big bit, one with a small bit, and when you step on it, I can't have my hearing aids in because I hear every wheel bearing going on inside that thing. And when I'm working, I just get caught up in the work.
So what you're telling us is you really weren't paying attention to what everybody else was doing on that day?
No,
We know that David Evans got to the house eventually that day.
yeah.
Okay. Did you see him in the house eventually?
Yeah, every once in a while I see something walk by cause I have a blinder. It's a piece of wood, it helps contain the glass shards and dust that flies and the water that flies, so it just stays contained within my area, kinda like this, right here, taller.
All right. So you didn't necessarily meet him outside when he came, you saw him?
I think I saw him, yeah, when he showed up, I was outside with the dogs.
Now, do you remember like how he got there or not?
I have no idea how he had gotten there. He just come walking down the side of the house.
You definitely knew it was David Evans though, right?
Yeah, the dogs were barking. I told them they were nuts, no one was there, and then all of a sudden, oh,
Okay.
you were right.
And was he carrying anything? Do you remember backpack or any of his stuff, or did he come without that
I
stuff?
think he had his backpack.
But you don't know, you didn't see any cars in the area?
No, I didn't.
Now, one person I didn't ask you to, we didn't talk about is David Grunwald. Did you know David Grunwald briefly?
A few times through the summer, yeah.
Had he been at your house before?
Yep.
And did you know him as an acquaintance of Eric's also?
And the group, yep.
And, you know, we talked about which people were banned from your property, which ones weren't. Was David Grunwald banned from your property or not?
No,
But did you see, and did you know what kind of vehicle David drove or not?
you know, in the middle of the summer, I have no idea what he was driving.
You didn't pay attention to those kind of things?
I didn't pay attention.
But you told me you did not see David Grunwald there on the 13th when David Evans came by, right?
No,
So you were outside taking a break or letting
Yep.
the dogs out?
letting the dogs out.
Did you have some initial discussions with David Evans?
Yeah, basically asking him, what are you doing here?
Or was it more you talking at him?
Oh, yeah, I was talking at him, you know, there were questions, you know, but not much, because by the middle of that week, I'd already decided, yeah.
But nonetheless, did you scold him about leaving without telling you,
Oh, yeah,
about not going to school?
right.
about not letting you know whether he was safe or sound.
Yeah,
Right. Was he asking you whether he can stay at the house?
he did.
What did you tell him in response?
I told him as far as I was concerned, no, but the final decision was my mom's.
All right. So that, as to that issue, why did your mother have the final say? Being the eldest in the household?
And the oldest in the house, but she's got kind of a weak spot for kids that, problems or whatever,
All right, but when you defer to her, was that just out of respect for her?
Right.
Okay. And did you go in the house when David Evans went upstairs to talk to your mother or not?
Yeah, and I went back to work.
And did you overhear that conversation?
No. And that, two floors up, the very top floor, no one can hear anything. You can't even hear who's on the first floor.
You know, and, so when you went back to work, you just figured it was gonna be your mother's call whether David stays or not?
Yep,
But you already kinda made a preliminary decision that he was likely not staying?
yep.
Now, later in the day, did you ever find out, either from David Evans or Eric Almeninger or your mother, that she had said no to him?
Later in the night, I have no idea what time. I lose track of time when I'm working, but later in the night, David come walking by, and he goes, well, my brother's coming, I'm leaving soon. I don't think he said brother, I think he said someone's coming to get me, I'm leaving soon, and it's like, oh, I kinda cried, cause I was kinda pulling for him, but I didn't wanna deal with my hassle anymore. I mean, I tried.
Did you have knowledge that he took a shower before he said his goodbyes to you, or said it?
I think he did. I smelled the water anyway.
Or
I
did
smelled the steam.
Or did he was fed also?
I know he was fed because the one time I had ground and turned around and him and Eric walked by me with food in their hands. So.
And did he have possessions at your house?
Possession, oh,
Stuff.
yeah, clothes.
Did he take stuff with him when he was leaving,
No,
to your, best of your knowledge?
just what was in his backpack. He said he'd come get this stuff later.
And, did you actually see him leave or not?
I did because he had stopped, talked to me, and then I watched him walk out the door.
And did you see who picked him up or not?
No, because downstairs, there's no way to see.
And do you have I assume you're like most people, you're not watching your clock every time you do something, right?
I don't care, yeah, I don't
So
have a watch.
ballpark, what time do you think he left? If you even know, or can you just tell me that it was dark outside, what can you
It
tell me?
was dark when he showed up, so I know it was after 4.
Right. Now, let's talk about the time he showed up and the time he left. Do you have any idea of the duration of that time period?
I have no idea. I mean, I could tell you, but it's only based on what everybody else has told me before,
Yeah, I don't
so.
want you to
yeah.
guess or based on what other people have told you, I'm just saying from your,
For me,
You're
I
saying
had
I have
no
no
idea what
idea.
time it was.
okay. But let me ask you some different questions about that time period. Did you ever go outside of the house for a break, during that time period when David Evans was there?
No,
The time he got there and the time he left?
no,
You were just working?
yep.
It was,
If the dogs don't come up and tell me to go outside, then we don't.
let's say that,
I said, if the dogs don't come up and say, hey, I gotta go potty, then I don't.
so you're saying you had no reason to go outside, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And I assume, did you take a few breaks, like to eat or something, like during the time David Evans was there, or not?
I hadn't had a bite to eat since whatever it was. I made dinner, and because I have an old person, that's between 2 and 4.
So, were you aware of whether anybody else had come to your place, come to your property, been on your property during that time period?
No.
Is it possible that there were some other people on your property during that time period.
It's possible.
Okay, and tell us again, why perhaps would you not have noticed if somebody was in the camper or in the new garage, or just generally on the property?
Nothing's out of place.
But you were inside the house too, right?
Right, I mean, I'm not gonna see, down in the basement, this is what you see. It's just walls, just like in this room, just walls. You can't hear nothing, you can't see nothing.
And are you making noise during this time period with your equipment?
Oh, yeah, and I have a TV on too, so I have the TV on, which is, I keep turned up so I can hear it over, cause, well, that's Sunday and that's The Walking Dead, so I had to hear it anyway.
Right, and you're saying, like, you said you have hearing aids also?
Yep,
You didn't have them on when you were working?
no,
Now, so would that also prevent you from hearing stuff like outside?
yep. No, not necessarily. The walls, you can't hear, I can't hear anything outside the house, even with my hearing aids on.
Because the basement has what, poured concrete or block walls? Or
Yep,
You know which one or not?
I can't, I'm gonna say blocks.
Okay. So David Evans left, right, and you were under the distinct impression that he was gone for good. Maybe you see him again, but he wasn't gonna live at your place, right?
Right.
And was it your impression that Eric was gonna remain at the house that night?
Yep,
Did he ever ask your permission to go someplace?
no,
Did he have a vehicle?
no.
And what type of vehicles were at your place on that night?
Ford Escape, Ford Flex, the Dodge truck, and I think my sister was dead by then, so probably the Spark.
The Dodge Diesel was your truck?
Yep,
Escape was your mom's?
yep.
And then
Well, it's for everybody to use. That's our multi-purpose vehicle. Then she has hers. And then we had my sister's car, which just sat there, but the truck is basically a work truck. It only goes to and from shows.
But Eric Almendinger did not drive, correct?
No,
And he didn't drive any of those vehicles?
no.
And what time was your son's curfew? Had he gone someplace, what time would his curfew have been on Sunday?
We don't really have a curfew, because the kids were responsible enough to come in at a decent time. You know, they didn't stay out till like 3 a.m. just because they could do that. You know, they were always in between 10 and midnight. You know, midnight was always pushing it, because usually by then I'm saying,
Okay, so, there was some mention of marijuana that you had allowed young people to use marijuana at your place. Was that the case or not?
no,
No. Was there marijuana at your place?
yes.
Okay, and what was the purpose for the marijuana at your place?
It's a CBD marijuana, which is only for mom's breast cancer.
And like what you grew it at your place?
Grew it and turned it into a salve and turned it into pill form so she could take it and rub it on.
So there was no smoking of marijuana?
No,
Okay. You didn't smell anybody smoking marijuana on that evening, specifically in the room that Eric Almendinger and David Evans were in?
no.
Okay. And then, so if you grow the marijuana, how is it that the THC is taken out of the marijuana?
I don't deal with the growing of it and the creating of the plants. It's just a plant that doesn't have any THC in it that's really worth anything. It's not a psychoactive drug.
Okay, now let's turn to marijuana in general. Did you ever see some of the younger people smoking marijuana on your property?
I can't say if I have or not. I've seen smoke and they've also had cigarettes, so
So you personally have not,
I haven't seen them smoking the marijuana, but I've seen them have cigarettes and vapes.
okay, but you don't remember any particular instances where you actually saw any of the people that I've mentioned to you during this examination smoke marijuana?
just in pictures. But again, I can't tell you that that was marijuana or not either, because it's just a smoke film around them, so.
And pictures as far as, you stumbling upon some pictures on somebody's device, or what's the
No.
story on that?
Pictures of another friend, a girlfriend, she was just a friend, they had a birthday party, and then they, at her house, and you seen smoke, but that was,
Oh, that was after the 13th, though, correct? Claris party?
yeah, I don't know when that was, probably.
Okay. All right, so that night, you don't remember seeing anybody smoking marijuana, nor do you recall smelling any marijuana smoke?
No.
All right. When did you find out that your son, Eric Almendinger, left the house?
When David Evans was ready to leave the house, I think he had mentioned that he had left. I don't know, I had too many people saying, so I don't really know who was first.
So you,
But I'm gonna probably say it was David Evans who informed me first.
Wait, if he doesn't know, he doesn't know.
I agree, yes, that.
well, yeah, I
They
can,
can't be speculative.
right, we're not asking you to guess, just if you remember, I'm just asking you again, how you first found out that Eric Almendinger was no longer at the house on November 13th, or was it November, or the morning of November 14th, if it was then?
Yeah, I don't even remember the phone call, I just know that when Mrs. Grunwald called, she asked me if if her kid was with my kid, and I think that's when we came to the point that they were off at a party.
So, do you remember did she wake you up?
No, I was working.
You were working, how did you get the phone call?
I had just stopped grinding and the phone I had on the table, and
Now,
it's after, I know it had to be semi-late because mom's sleeping and I had to pick it up as soon as possible, because once she wakes up, it's hard to get her back to sleep.
all right, and, you got a phone call, and did you know Mrs. Grunwald before the 13th, or no?
No,
Did you ever meet her before the 13th?
no,
And do you remember if the phone call was the 13th, or was it the morning hours?
I don't know.
But it was late, either late on the 13th or early
Yeah.
on the 14th? And you remember her telling you that she was looking for her son, correct?
Yeah, she told me she was in my driveway, calling me from her phone.
Now, did all this catch you by surprise?
Yeah, because I didn't know how the hell she knew where I lived.
Well, that part, okay, I understand that part, but how about your son not being home?
Yeah, I was already upset at that point, but he
All right,
wasn't
so-
answering.
So you think it's more likely that you found out about it before Edith Grunwald called you?
I don't, yeah, I'll say yeah.
By checking his room, or do you think you heard from?
I know I did look in the room, and there was nobody there. The light was on, the door was closed, but nobody was in the room, so.
And again, no discussions, no asking for permission to go someplace?
No,
All right. Now, when she called and she asked where David Grunwald was, correct? If you knew where David Grunwald was, right?
right?
And what did you tell her?
That the two were together, apparently, like I said, it's been so long, I'm not quite entirely sure of the entire conversation, but somewhere at some point, we had come to the conclusion that the two were together.
All right. But this was there was a degree of speculation involved there, is that correct?
Yeah,
I'm saying that because you never saw David Grunwald on your property that.
no, if he was there, he'd have stopped in, walked by me and talked to me.
And did David Evans ever talk about David Grunwald when he talked to you?
No,
Did Eric Almendinger ever talk to you about David Grunwald being over on the 13th?
no,
Okay, so, coming to this note, speculating that they were both together that was just kind of putting some pieces together that led you to that possible conclusion?
Yeah,
And did you have any idea, if you figure they may be together, did you have any idea where they may be? And did you convey that to Mrs. Grunwald?
all I know is they were apparently at a party. So after we were done talking, that's when I was sending text messages and saying, David's mom was here, she's pissed, I'm pissed, you guys aren't here, you know, basically, this is just in a nutshell. And she had talked about calling the troopers, or had called the troopers already to report him missing. I don't know if that was true or not at that point. I had said that to him, and I said, you guys are both in trouble, and I even when
Was
I'm
this,
face-
texting?
yeah, on Facebook, through Facebook Messenger. And I even sent a text to David Grunwald on the Messenger, but I never got an answer back from him either, which is still, to this day, I believe is still on his Messenger.
Now, at this point, when you are trying to communicate with Eric Almeninger, the presumption on your part is that the two of them may be out someplace at some party?
Yeah,
Did you know whether it was in the Matsu or in Anchorage, or was there any location associated with
I
this?
had no idea. I had no idea until sometime late in the night, morning, or morning, whatever you wanna call it, the next day, the 14th.
All right. Now, let me backtrack a little bit. Is it possible that you were talking to somebody around 7:30, between 7:30 and 8:30, or around that time on the 13th, and telling people that they would have to call a boy's mother? Does that ring any bell to you, or not?
No,
Okay.
that never even happened.
So you were not outside talking to anybody?
No, I never even, wasn't even outside. If I was outside and had noticed that these guys were all here, they'd have been in trouble.
Let me ask you some more particular questions. Before Mrs. Grunwald called you, did you have any knowledge that anybody other than David Evans and Eric Almeninger and your mother had been on the property?
No,
Did you have any knowledge about any other incident which may have occurred on your property?
no,
Did you have any knowledge about any incident that may have occurred in either your new garage or the camper trailer?
no,
Did you see Dominic Johnson on your property that evening?
no,
Austin Barrett,
no,
Bradley Renfro?
no,
Did you ever see Eric Almeninger leave the house?
no,
During the 13th of November?
no, just going upstairs.
So that's all you saw?
Yeah,
And you yourself, the only time you had left your house was to go let the dogs out that first time? Thing, and that's clarifying whether David Evans told you that Eric Almeninger went to a party before David Evans left. Did you testify before the Palmer Grand Jury in December of 2016?
I probably did.
And is it fair to say that in December of 2016, your recollection of the events of November 13th and 14th of 2016 were fresher than they are now, 2 years later?
Oh, yeah.
And do you think it might help refresh your recollection if I were to show you your grand jury testimony regarding that issue of whether David Evans informed you that your son had gone to a party?
Okay.
Page 181 of the transcript. I'm gonna
turn your attention to part of my binder, page 181 of the grand jury transcript. I have a number of things highlighted, but it's the bottom part that's highlighted, underlined, and circled. If you can just, if you can just read, how about read that second page of the, second part of the page to yourself, just to see if it helps refresh your recollection.
Okay.
Does that help refresh your
Yeah, it helps,
recollection?
yeah.
Okay. Now, having read that part of your previous grand jury testimony in December 2016, do you have a better memory of of who may have told you that Eric went to a party in Anchorage?
Yeah,
Okay. And was it David Evans?
yeah,
And did he mention that Eric went to a party in Anchorage?
yeah.
And is that, so going back to your impression that David Grunwald was with Eric Almendinger, did David Evans telling you that Eric Almendinger was going to a party, did that play a role in you forming the opinion when Mrs. Grunwald called that David Grunwald was likely with your son?
Say that again?
Yeah, the fact that David Evans told you that Eric was going to a party in Anchorage, did that contribute to your opinion that David Grunwald may be with Eric Almendinger in Anchorage?
When she called me
Right,
asking, yeah.
exactly, okay. And you talked about you trying to text your son, did he respond right away or not?
No,
How long, did you continue to text?
oh, yeah,
All right. And as far as, now you know that Mrs. Grunwald the Grunwalds are concerned about their son not making it home. And you knew that was a serious concern, right?
yeah.
You didn't take that lightly, I take it, right?
I can't say, I mean, it was serious that they were concerned for their kid, yeah,
Right. And then in turn, you were concerned because your son wasn't home, correct?
right,
Okay. And I assume you only had a few things that were possible for you to do, right? I mean, trying to contact your son is a logical move, right?
right,
And then you tried to contact David Grunwald
I did,
through the means Facebook Messenger, you said?
yeah,
And I take it you found him on Facebook?
yeah,
Okay. So you weren't like Facebook friends with him to begin with?
no,
And then as far as communicating with your son, was texting a typical way you would communicate with your son? One of
Yes.
the typical ways? All right.
he didn't have a phone,
And he just had his tablet.
right.
And then what other things did you do to try to help figure out either where David Grunwald was or where Eric Almendinger was? If you recall, what else did you do? Were there any other options?
No, because as far as I knew in this state, you could call the police and say something, but they had to wait a certain amount of time before they can really do anything. But all I did was just text the hell out of them for I don't know how long, and just saying, basically, assuming, because we talked, that they were both together, and that's how I was putting it in the text.
And are you still working under the presumption that they are alive and they're hanging out together someplace
Yeah,
without
just,
their parents' permission?
just ignoring the hell out of us, yeah.
Okay. And did you go driving around someplace or not?
No,
And did Eric Almendinger come home first, or did he respond via text first, if you recall?
responded, I'm not quite sure what time, 3 or so in the morning, guessing.
And did he say where he was?
He just,
Why object to that?
It's not hearsay, because it's not for the truth of the matter asserted.
We're not trying to show where he was. In fact, we anticipate it's gonna be a lie.
Object to that.
Well, I think this is one of those where we probably, instead of arguing at the bench, Judge, we-
I'll have the jury speak at this point. Okay, please be seated, gentlemen. What I need, Mr. Kalachak, is I'm sure you're gonna be offering a series of questions of Mr. Almendinger regarding statements made by
right. I I
co-defendants.
am that.
Which statements are they for?
Well, they're basically all of them. They're contained in state's proposed exhibit number 169, which are the text messages between Mr. Almendinger and his son. In the last trial, I had him read all of it. I wasn't gonna have him read all of it, but basically to put and we already argued this in our brief, and I think
I needed some specifics
Yeah.
on this one, so.
on this one, it's basically, him, lying to his father, saying that he didn't see David Grunwald. I'm trying to remember I have a,
And
copy
what
of-
is your argument for relevance of these?
well, there's a couple of things. First of all, Mr. Stoller is mistaken as to his definition of hearsay. And I think the part he doesn't understand is that hearsay is for the truth of the matter asserted. So when we want to get in Eric Almendinger's statement of the declarant, and he's the declarant, that he didn't see David Grunwald. We're not getting that in to show the truth of the declarant statement. That's the definition of us trying to use it for the truth of the matter asserted. We're trying to get it in to show he was lying. When he's saying, we're trying to get in statements that he was in Anchorage, for example, with Victoria, that he was in Anchorage drunk as a skunk. We're not getting it in for the truth of the matter asserted that he indeed was in Anchorage drunk as a skunk, because we of course know there is no truth to the matter that was asserted by him. In fact, we're getting it in to show that he lied about that. So first of all,
And what is the relevance of him lying in this case?
well, the relevance
That's what I need
is
a
that
foundation.
we provided both federal and state case law to show that lies are evidence of consciousness of guilt.
Okay, I understand that.
Right.
And I've read all the cases,
Right,
there's a
and-
series of them.
And therefore, with the
Let me finish.
oh, sorry.
That the defendant's false exculpatory statements are evidence of consciousness of guilt. It's pretty standard law at this point in time that comes in against a defendant who is on trial,
Right,
where he has an opportunity to take the stand if he chooses to and combat those statements if he wanted to. But none of those cases involve co-defendants.
well,
So that's where I want you
yes.
to
Right.
explain to me, how is it relevant in this
Okay.
situation?
Well, the main concern with the whole Bruton line of cases is, in the old days, we used statements by other defendants that were statements against penal interest, even if they implicated the defendant that's currently on trial.
Which these don't necessarily do.
Yeah, right. None of these statements talk about Dominic Johnson at all. But our position is, number one, they're not hearsay because they're not for the truth of the matter asserted. I think that's pretty much a given. I don't think.
I understand that point.
Right.
It's the relevance
Right.
of him,
So-
of Allmendinger's position.
Right.
And
So
then it's the
here-
probative value
Right.
versus the prejudicial effect of those statements. That's the two things I want you to
Right,
address.
Judge. And so here, we're in an accomplice liability situation where we merely have to show that one of them killed David Grunwald. We don't have to show that it was Dominic Johnson, Eric Almendinger, Austin Barrett, or Bradley Renfro. We just have to show that one of them killed David Grunwald and that others either encouraged, incited, helped in the planning, or assisted or solicited another person to do so with the intent that the final result occur, that David Grunwald be killed. So in this particular case, it's clear that, we could argue to the jury that Austin Barrett did it, since he was the one that had the ties to the Springfield, and he was the one that was dropped off at Peterson's house. We can argue that's a possibility. We can argue it's a possibility that Eric Allmendinger might have done it, given some of his postings, like that photo with the word Killa on it. But basically, every defendant, the situation we are dealing with here, and I want to correct something Mr. Stoller said, but because we've argued this before, the entire situation we're dealing with, and I'm really dealing mostly with just Allmendinger and Johnson at this point, each defendant completely lied about this incident. There is no doubt about that. Mr. Stoller last time said his client quickly admitted that he was in the Bronco. I think Mr. Stoller might have been thinking about some conversations he had with his client, because we've reviewed all the police reports and all the interviews. He never admitted being in the Bronco. To the contrary, he told the police that he was at somebody's house in that area, and he called a cab, and then he was picked up. So Dominic Johnson, despite us having video of him at the gas pumps at the same time that his phone is connected with Devin Peterson's phone, he, contrary to what Mr. Stoller said last week in this same argument, never acknowledged that he was in that stolen Bronco. To our knowledge, maybe there's some interview that the three of us haven't seen, that Mr. Stoller has seen, but all he did was lie. And the same thing with Eric Allmendinger, all he did was lie. So actually our argument is a multi-tiered argument. Number one, the case law says that we could admit lies as evidence of guilt. We're in an accomplice liability situation where we have to show that one of them killed the victim and the others helped with the intention the victim be killed. I'm talking about the murder charge, not the kidnapping and the beating, etc. But essentially it's the same theory. We have to show that one of them was the principal. I guess another way to do it is to show that they all were equal participants, but we know they all couldn't have pulled the trigger on that one shot that killed David Grunwald. But the other thing, that's like the first part, or the first theory why these things are relevant, but there are numerous other reasons why these statements are relevant. Number one, the statements explain the unfolding of the events. And again, none of these statements have to do with them touching on the murder of David Grunwald or their participation in it. They're all false exculpatory statements, including Dominic Johnson's. His are clearly admissible, but all of them are doing the same thing. So not only do the statements show the progress of the events, they also show why the police investigation progressed as it did, but also, as we argued in our briefs, the other important thing we have to show is that for accomplice liability, we obviously have to show that there was an association between these individuals. We have to show that there was communication, obviously, between these individuals. We obviously have to show participation to a degree as specified by the accomplice liability statute of these individuals, and we have to show the relevant intent, and if there is any motive, we have to show the motive. But also, just the simple fact, taking aside the fact that lies are admissible to show individual participants' consciousness of guilt, taking all that aside, just the fact that this defendant and Eric Allmendinger lied, removing themselves from these crimes completely, and not partially, completely. Eric Allmendinger said he was drunk in Anchorage, and as far as the statements we can get into, because we've agreed not to go in the interview, Dominic Johnson said he was at some house of some Eric somebody or other in the area, and he got a cab.
That's coming in his own independent interview.
Yeah, that's gonna come through the very short,
At the car's
limited
parking
interview
lot?
That's the car's parking lot.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure, and I'll double check the transcript over lunch that.
Well, I'll make a decision on that later, so I'll have to listen to that and review that.
So just again, Judge, it shows that the lies also, in addition to showing how the events unfolded, the lies also showed the group solidarity. We have to show that, it's not necessarily that they were acting in concert, but in some ways we do have to show they were acting in concert, because for all these crimes, there has to be a common intent. For the participation in the beating, for example, we have to show there was a common intent, and we think we could do that through the text messages between the defendant and Eric Allmendinger. And again, those are statements by Eric Almeninger, but they're clearly not hearsay because they are communications they are having right before the crime was committed. But basically, we have to show that all these people were associated together, that they were acting together, they had some common intents and some common motives. So, again, we are completely staying away from the scenario. For example, like Bradley Renfro was interviewed saying, blaming it all on Eric Almeninger and saying he was scared of Eric Almeninger. Austin Barrett was interviewed blaming it all on Eric Almeninger and said he was scared. We didn't use those statements in Eric Almeninger's because we recognize those are the kind of statements that are precluded by Bruton. But here we are in a different scenario. None of the statements, especially the ones early on, these statements are still when this is ongoing. This is like during the close in time to the murder. And again, they're clearly not for the truth of the matter asserted. I think Mr. Stoller argued, well, of course they are, because they're admitting him to show the murder. Well, that's not the definition of the truth of the matter asserted. It's when we're trying to show that the declarant was telling the truth, that's when we get to a hearsay issue. So this is clearly just a legal issue of whether those statements come in as consciousness of guilt and to establish the associations between the group. And they don't implicate any other defendants, and they happen close in time to the murder and the evidence destruction. So, and again, I feel, and I know the court knows that I find it difficult to argue these things at the bench when the.
That's why I excused him.
Right, but, you know, I know Ms. Howard covered this issue in our opposition to the motion in limine, and we provided case law, but again, some of this is, you don't get these kind of circumstances in every case where you have 4 co-defendants and they're being tried separately, and you have a different set of statements, full interviews for some of them, but also initial statements they made that were lies. But I would suggest, Judge, that we even should not debate legally whether this is hearsay, because clearly false exculpatory statements per the case law, per the definition, are taken out of the hearsay category. It just becomes a question of whether they're relevant and whether they're precluded, whether their admissibility is precluded based on some other case or rule which the defendant has yet to cite.
Bruton. Bruton says statements by a co-defendant are hearsay. That's what it says. That's what Bruton stands for. And so, that's what, I mean, Bruton clearly says statements by a co-defendant are hearsay. These are hearsay statements. And some of the statements.
That's totally wrong,
I give you an
Judge.
opportunity.
Let him finish.
That's not totally wrong. It's totally correct. It's inadmissible hearsay. It violates my client's confrontation rights. Number 2, some of these text messages, this is a long text message change, he's being not fully honest. They want to show that my client was hanging out with Eric Almeninger later, so they are actually providing that for the truth of the matter asserted, FYI. So the idea that these are all just false exculpatory statements, that's not what he has just there. So he's not giving you the whole truth when he talks about what's contained in those text messages. Those are statements that might be relevant to Mr. Almendinger's consciousness of guilt, and if they were used in his trial, might not be hearsay as to him. But when they come in a separate trial where he's not here, where he's not present, they are hearsay. And they're inadmissible hearsay. And they violate our confrontation clause. The other thing is they're not relevant because his consciousness of guilt isn't the issue in this trial. So that is a relevance issue as to why they don't come in. And he can't really explain to us why they are relevant, that if Almendinger has some consciousness of guilt, how that affects my client. And these are statements made post the event. When you talk about co-conspirators, which they aren't even charged as co-conspirators, statements that come in about a co-conspiracy are only relevant if you can show the conspiracy through other means, which not charged under that, and those statements happened prior to the conspiracy being committed. These are all post-events. They are not admissible as to my client in this case. These are inadmissible texts. some of them that he has there actually are there, they are trying to provide him for the truth of the matter asserted, so him saying that that's not the case isn't exactly true, because I've seen these texts, I've seen what, it's the same exhibit as last time, I imagine he hasn't showed me yet, but they also include statements asking for, permission to basically allow Mr. Johnson and others to come over to the house. Those are actually being provided for the truth of the matter asserted, FYI, so.
Wrong, but that's the classic example of what is not hearsay. That just shows that the defendant is making a statement to his dad asking for the other ones to come over. It's not testimonial, there's nothing being asserted there. That just shows that the continuing associations is, I mean,
Well,
again, I think Mr. Stoller misses the mark as to what is hearsay.
I
and
don't
what
miss
isn't.
the mark for what's here, say, I think the state.
let me just make some findings here, okay? The case law is really clear that, as I said before, false exculpatory statements are not hearsay. They do go to conscientious of guilt, to the individual making it. So what we have is we have statements made by Eric Allmendinger, basically attempting to lie his way out of being accused in this case. He makes the statements to the police officers, he makes the statements to his father, he makes the statements to Grunwald's girlfriend, and maybe somebody else. And I've already made a finding that some of those are coming in. Because the difference in the relevance in this case is that this is an accomplice liability case. The state has a right to put on evidence that one of the co-defendants may have committed the murder. If they had direct evidence that Eric Allmendinger did it, they would be able to put that on even though Eric Allmendinger's not here. And it might have been the police officer, you know, saying that, you know, we saw him do this, we saw him do that. But in regards to your client, their burden is either to show that he was the principal or to show that he was an accomplice and that he is linked to the conduct of the other three. If they're intending to show that he was an accomplice, then they have to basically go through the whole accomplice liability requirements, the elements of that statute, specific intent and so forth. But they still have a right to show, if they have evidence, that one of the other co-defendants may have committed the murder. I mean, that has to come in. I mean, that you can't, it's like if you had a bank robbery, you had the guy sitting in the car and you couldn't give an evidence that of the guilt of the individual doing the bank robbery as to himself. So I do think the statements come in as a conscientious of guilt of the co-defendant regarding his conduct as a possible principal to the murder of David Grunwald. So I'm letting him in for that purpose. Now, if there's stuff in there regarding your client that is not to that you were saying, it is for the truth of the matter asserted, I don't see those coming in, Mr. Kalachek. I think that, you know, I need to see exactly which ones are you opposing to. So do you need a few minutes to identify those, or?
If we could approach, I mean, so he.
Yeah, I would
he is
like to
approach-
see exactly what you're saying, that,
Well,
And just for the exhibit was actually attached to the briefs, so the.
okay, I don't have all my big file in here, I can get that.
well, I think what he's saying, Judge, is the statements that his client, that Eric Allmendinger is asking either for Austin Barrett or Dominic Johnson to spend the night, those are not hearsay because he's not asserting anything. They're not testimonial. They're
But
not
what is the
hearsay.
relevance of it? It's
It
not it's not
shows-
conscience of guilt.
It shows because the defense attorney already has tried to separate his client from the others. Oh, that he wasn't
Yeah.
doing some of this
That
stuff. He
that is a
wasn't-
that is a valid defense that he can present.
Right,
It's a
and
co-defendant case.
Mr. Allmendinger already testified that Dominic Johnson and Austin Barrett came over after November 13th. So that just shows their continuing associations.
I don't think I'm gonna let that in, and for this reason. There has to be some,
Statements?
that statement regarding Dominic Johnson coming over. I don't think that goes to the conscience of guilt of Eric Allmendinger. It goes to, basically, the relevance is placing this client at the scene through a statement by a co-defendant. That is what Bruton is talking about. I think that one doesn't come in my opinion. So I'm gonna keep that one out. That's different than the idea of him saying, I was in Anchorage drunk, so I couldn't have done it. That's a different ballgame. But him saying, we had planned to have Dominic Johnson come over to the house that night, that is implementing Dominic Johnson in the conduct that we're accusing him of through the statement of a co-defendant who's not here.
Right.
So that's where it gets, the confrontation clause starts kicking in with Bruton. So that statement, I don't think, if that's what it's saying, if it's saying that, you know,
He's
he,
asking permission post the event, FYI.
Just for them to hang out together. So it's really nothing relating, it's just them.
what date is that?
This would have been, well, we have to,
Is it the, I mean, is it the,
it's in November.
I think it's like November 15th or 16th.
19th
so it's 6 days later,
Yeah.
and the 22nd.
But again, I
and
mean,
it's
the
a
court knows,
text to his dad that can Dominic Johnson spend the night 6 days after the event at my house? Is that what you're
No.
telling me it is?
no, it is, and the state's position still is, it's not hearsay, because we're not trying to prove the truth, we're just trying to show that the continued association.
That's the truth matters.
No, it's not. This is where the Court of Appeals can give us the ultimate decision, but that's not for the truth of the matter asserted. If somebody is just asking their dad, we're showing that they made the statement asking about it. They're not asserting anything. We're not trying to show the truth of anything asserted, what the declarant said was true. We're just showing simply that he made that statement, and that shows his intent to continue to associate with the other defendants. So it's not really, he's not telling any kind of story that we're trying to show was true. We're simply bringing those statements in to show that he, by making those statements, is intending to keep hanging out with the same people that he was with on a.
But you have other direct evidence of that.
Well, we have evidence from Mr. Elmer
And you
here
have,
that he saw them there.
but you have evidence that you're gonna be putting on eyewitness testimony of they were hanging out
We have
together
police
afterwards.
officers, we have Mr. Elmeninger to show.
Oh, you have the girl?
Maybe.
Okay, well, but that's,
I can't tell me if they do or don't.
because she was she was there after the fact, and they were all together, correct?
Correct, and we haven't gotten to that.
So as far as linking them together after the incident, you have direct evidence of that.
We may, so with Ms. Bledsoe, we haven't gotten to the people that are closely associated with the.
Well, for now, I'm gonna hold that statement out.
Okay.
But see what other evidence you have of it, because I do have to weigh the probative value, is it prejudicial, what other evidence you have and so forth. As I recall from the first trial, she testified that they went over to her house after the incident, went to the back shed and so forth. So they were all together, placed together by her after the incident.
I mean, and obviously, we have some videos that are date stamped. And shows them
for that, as
together.
far as that one coming in, I'm gonna keep that part out.
Okay.
The rest of it can come in, because it goes to the co-defendant's own state of mind. And the officer's testimony regarding the lies Mr. Allmendinger stated to, not the father, but the son, to him about being in Anchorage and so forth, as a deceptive move to deflect from him, also come in under the same ruling that I just made. So those can come
Are
in.
you saying those aren't testimonial?
Huh?
Are you trying to say those aren't testimonial to the?
Those are consciousness of guilt. The ones that say I was in Anchorage, I think those are your classic false exculpatory statements that defendants make that are allowed in. In this case, they're allowed in under the accomplice liability component, which makes it the same as him almost sitting here, so. Alrighty,
I
so
don't agree with that ruling.
I think it's,
Just so
and I think it's a ruling
Judge, I
that,
think it's clear that since we argued our relevant positions and Mr. Stoller doesn't agree with it, I don't know if we need to
well,
reconfirm.
it's- as I stated before, all the case law talks about a defendant on trial. There's very little about it under the theory of accomplice liability, but in my court's ruling, accomplice liability has opened the door for evidence coming in for the accomplices. So I think consciousness of guilt is one of those that comes in. So I'm gonna let it in for that purpose.
And Judge, so I will have him identify the exhibit, I'm gonna ask him some questions about it. I won't admit it until we had a chance to redact those
Yeah,
portions.
redact the statements that were made that implement Mr. Johnson. Okay, we can bring him in. Will you be done with him by noon, you think? Okay, but we gotta bring him back anyway.
I don't have a long cross for this witness, just.
You don't?
I
Okay.
do not.
All right.
I do have some questions, but it's not,
Well, maybe we can buzz through and get him on. get them finished at this point, so. All right, bring them on.
And just for the record,
And maybe at some point, I will read the jury, the objection jury instruction. That might not be a bad thing to read them, so that they're aware of what the requirements are. Do you gentlemen understand what I'm talking about?
I have no issue with that.
I think that might not be a bad idea. I'll have to pull that one. Okay, please be seated, everybody. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you. Mr. Albany, I'm showing you what's been marked as state's proposed exhibit number 169. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pages. You take a look at that and see whether you recognize it.
I do.
Okay. Just look at all of it, just to make sure that we're on the same page. Tell me when you're all set reviewing it. I don't need you to read every line, but just need you to make sure you talk to me about what that exhibit is.
Okay,
All right. That exhibit, you recognize what that exhibit is?
yeah,
Does it contain the text that you sent to your son Eric Almendinger in the November 13th and 14th of 2016 timeframe?
yes,
And does it also contain responses by him to you during that timeframe?
yes,
And is that how you remember the text looking?
yeah,
Okay. And is it fair to say this record of text is more accurate than if I just asked you to recall on the record what the texts were 2 years later?
right.
Now, can you tell me, I'm not gonna make you read every line like we did last time, all right? But can you at least tell me when you started texting him? Let's just pick and choose. I'm gonna ask you a couple of things out of that exhibit.
I'm supposed to do what?
Do you remember when you first started texting Eric Almendinger? About what time? Which
should have, I think that one has the date and time on it,
It
doesn't it?
looks like it's a 10/18,
On the 13th?
yeah.
And, in the first part, was it mostly you just sending text to Eric Albany?
Oh, yeah.
And what day and time was the first response you got from him?
It doesn't show that.
Did it take, yeah, they might be on the,
It's part of one long time zone here, but it doesn't,
yes,
it's saying at 12:47, 12:05, I was writing through all of this.
okay. So let's take a look at, for example, and I know that every line doesn't have a date and time, but there's a section that says November 14th at 12:05 a.m., is that correct?
I don't have my glasses, but it looks like a 1 and a 2.
Okay. And then you're texting him and you still don't know where he is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And then when he finally responds, what does he say? I mean, his responses are in blue on that document, correct?
I'm not with David, is what he's saying.
To be honest, he's not what David said, right?
Right.
And did he say who he was with or what he was doing?
He just says I'm with some friends and won't be home tonight, which I was boiling by that point.
All right. And then he said, what else did he say in that text?
Maybe I will be at school tomorrow, hopefully if I can find a ride.
All right. And you were mad at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, later on in the text strings, and now, we're going to the section that starts November 14th at 3:42 a.m. There were some more discussions about David Grunwald and whether he was with David Grunwald and whether David gave him a ride, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And what did he say about that? What was his response? In the
He
blue,
said,
remember, his are in the blue.
He says, okay, no, he didn't give me a ride, didn't even know that other David was there.
And he's referring to David Grunwald, right? Saying he wasn't aware that David was at your house, correct? Because he's certainly not talking
Yeah.
about David Evans, right?
Yeah,
Okay. And then let me turn your attention to his responses to you after November 14th at 7:28 a.m. Did he give you some more detailed responses about whether he had seen David Grunwald the preceding day?
I just said I never saw David today.
Did he elaborate whether he knew that David Evans gave David?
He just said, I just know David Evans showed up at the house and he said he gave him a ride. That's all I know about him or even heard about him that day. I don't know what that means.
TBH, okay.
Till people started freaking out, texting me when I never saw the effing kid in a week or two, I think.
All right. So, and in the rest of it, he never changed his position on that in the text, in the conversations with you, is that correct? That he hadn't
Correct.
seen David Grunwald in a week or two, correct?
Right.
Okay. So tell me, when did he, meaning Eric, show back up at your house?
Who?
Eric Almeninger, when did he show back up at your house? And you can refer to the calendar.
Well, he was in, let's say like Monday, changed clothes. Dominic was actually with him when he come in to change clothes. And then,
So you took Dominic, you're talking about this defendant, Dominic Johnson?
yeah,
How did they get to your place on Monday?
I don't know.
And this is the 14th of November, 2000?
14th or 15th, yeah.
All right. Remember what time it was, or no?
It was still light out, so it was sometime after school time zone time frame.
And do you remember what they did or not?
Come in. I had some words with Eric. they changed clothes, and at that time, they were supposed to be going and helping, from what I was told, look for David Grunwald.
They're told by them?
Yeah,
All right. And as to like about what time it was, I'm not gonna dwell on that, but would it help refresh your recollection if I were to show your grand jury testimony from December of 2016 to verify about what time it was?
you can, but I think I was pretty much guessing then, too.
Oh, you were, all right, let's see if this helps you at all. Turning your attention to page 183 of the transcript in my binder, the bottom part of the page, if you can read that to yourself, see if it helps you.
It might have been before that, because it was still light out.
Okay, then I'll ask you some questions about it. And then.
Yeah, they just went to come and get some clothes.
All right, let me ask you some questions now. So, having showed you your grand jury testimony from 2 years ago, did it help refresh your recollection, or were you still ballparking the time back then?
I was ballparking the time back then, and basing it on now at 4 o'clock. At this time, it's a little darkish, but I know that it was lighter out.
So, I imagine you had some discussions with Eric when he came home on the 14th, correct?
Yeah,
Let me turn your attention to the defendant. Was he saying anything on the 14th when he came down?
no,
Not a peep?
no,
Did he say hi to you?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Did he make any small talk with you?
No.
What do they do exactly? Where did you first see them? Where do they go? What did you see?
Dominic stood by the chair. Eric went to go change. And I think they went up to get something to eat and then left. Because that's when they were supposedly going to go help.
When you say that Dominic Johnson,
I'll grant that objection, speculation, I'll strike that last comment.
right, did Dominic Johnson talk about helping search for David Grunwald? Well, that's a specific question as to.
Yes, the answer, first of all, it's leading, second of all,
It doesn't, the leading, definition of leading question is a question of suggesting answer.
Be a foundation on what the conduct was.
Exactly.
So, where's the foundation?
You talked about your perception they were going someplace after. Did this defendant make any statements about what they were gonna do after they left your house?
No,
He just stood there?
yeah,
So your perception was based on what your son told you, correct?
right.
Now, changing clothes, you said this defendant stood by a chair while Eric went and changed clothes?
Yeah,
And did you even pay attention, like, to what Eric was wearing and what he changed into, or not?
I didn't pay attention. I know he was still wearing the same clothes when he left on Sunday. Well, no, I can't answer that question, no.
Okay. 'Cause you didn't see him leave on Sunday?
Right,
All right.
but, only because he was wearing clothes earlier that day, but I don't know if he changed before then, and I just know he come home and changed clothes.
How long did it take Eric Almeninger to change his clothes?
I have no idea, 10, 15 minutes, I don't know.
And, what was happening, were you still with Dominic Johnson when Eric was changing his clothes?
Yeah.
And what were you guys talking about during that time?
Mhm. I was just working on my order, while Eric was changing and he was just standing there.
And what happened after Eric Almeninger changed his clothes?
I think they went upstairs to get something to eat and then, I know they left.
And how long did they remain gone for the rest of Monday, November 14?
No, 'cause Eric came back home. Me, and like it's been so long ago, I really can't answer that question. Either they went, I just know that they went to go help look and that he, and then went to school the next day on Tuesday.
So let's just focus on when Eric came home. I know it's been 2 years ago. When do you recall Eric Albany coming back home?
What do you mean by that, coming back home? I mean, was already in and out.
Right, so he came with Dominic Johnson on Monday the 14th, and then they both left.
Right,
When does Eric Albany come home the next time?
the next day.
All right. And what do you remember, was he alone or with somebody else?
He was alone, I think,
Okay, and we're talking about Tuesday, is that correct?
yeah. Pretty sure he was alone that day.
And, what did he remain at the house after he came back on that Tuesday?
Yes,
And did he go back to school or not?
yeah.
Now, do you know, I'm not sure, when you're looking at your previous testimony, did they shower when they came back on that Monday or not, do you know?
I don't know.
Is it possible they did or not?
I can't say because I don't know.
Let me see if it helps.
Because I don't remember.
Yeah,
I mean, I really don't remember.
and again, I'll show you page 191 of your grand jury testimony. And I'm not sure whether this is gonna help you or not, because I'm not sure how much you were focusing on their exact movements and activities, but over here, when I talk, when you talk about they just came back Monday night, then if you can continue reading with the rest of your,
Did this showering and eating and then all of a sudden the word went there.
yeah. So, and that's you and me, you know.
Because now what I mean by all of a sudden was, it wasn't an all of a sudden disappearance thing. It was just, they were going to go look. That I do know.
And as far as you knew, when they came when they came to your place on Monday, were you still aware that David Grunwald was missing?
Yep,
And did you, not talking about what your son did, did you, in addition to scolding him, I imagine you scolded him for not telling you that he left on Sunday night, correct? Yes?
yes.
Did you make any statements to him about David Grunwald being missing? If you
Yeah,
recall.
I've mentioned to him that David was still missing and I don't remember.
And I'm not asking about
Yeah.
what he said.
No, I'm just saying that I did tell him that David was still missing, and that I talked to his mom, I think, a couple times after she called me the first time, that night of, and let him know whatever information we had come across from Facebook or news and stuff like that.
And then, as far as this defendant, you said previously in your testimony that he had come to your house after the 14th also, is that correct?
Yeah, I stayed for a weekend,
Slept over?
yep.
Right. And you also said Austin Barrett or Andrew came by after the 13th, correct?
You're right,
Did he stay over also?
I don't think so,
But he came over your house?
yeah.
I know you said you really didn't go on your son's tablet and whatnot, but turning your attention to State's Exhibit number 40, were you aware that your son and his friends were trying to act like gang members during this time? No?
No.
Go ahead, Jeff, that question.
Same responses as in our briefs and. Thank you. You weren't aware of this, sir?
No.
So the same as with the gun, you weren't aware that they had any guns? Now, did you see him in the past wearing blue bandanas?
Yes.
Did you, and Eric in particular, Eric Almenander, was that pretty much a regular piece of his outfit?
I can't say that, it kind of was, I mean, it was on and off, on and off.
And did you make anything of this?
No, kids have fads and change things all the time.
And, you know, you see each of them is displaying the C. And let me just show you.
Yeah, I can,
Oh, okay. Have you seen any of them do that in person?
no. No,
And do you even know what that means or not?
now, but no,
Had no idea what that meant?
no.
Did you personally encourage your son to engage in any illegal behavior?
Meaning as in what?
Gang activity?
Objection.
Objection is, there's no evidence of any illegal conduct, so,
Well, I'm talking about the murder and the beating, that's the illegal, I'm not talking about,
yeah.
well, that's subject to interpretation by the jury.
Well, I think you need to rephrase it.
Yeah.
Totally relaxed.
Right. Did you teach your son to be assaulted,
No.
hurt any fellow human beings?
Nope.
No. And turn your attention to state's proposed exhibit number 29. Can you tell us who's depicted in that photograph?
Yep, that's my son.
I'm objecting to point out the record.
Okay, noted for the record, no rules. Go ahead, man.
Have you ever seen this photograph before? Before all the co-activity?
No.
And, I mean, would you say in the one we have on the screen, number 40, people try to act tough? Or
You want to object to that? Call for speculation.
It is speculation.
You've never seen the C's, you've never seen this photograph before?
No. Prior to, no.
Do you have any insight into this photograph? As far as when it was taken or where it was taken?
I know where it was taken.
Yeah. Can you at least help me with some of that?
I can tell, I can pretty much tell you where, and I can tell you when. Because I'm the one that presented you guys with that. This was taken in October, well before, about roughly a month before any of this happened, and this is in, looks like the school bathroom.
And do you know, so you wouldn't know who took it, or does it appear to be a
It
self-portrait?
appeared, you don't say that word,
Okay.
self-portrait, yes,
All right. But it definitely is your son, is that correct?
yes.
All right, and obviously, like when there's photos, like when you have those kind of, like the photo up on the screen.
When they're conglomerated like that,
Obviously, like the dollar bill sign up the wings, whatever that means, that's somebody inserted up later, like on a Facebook or on a tweet, right?
right.
Okay. And the same thing here, as far as the photograph, just to make sure that, you know, we're talking about, make sure it's accurate. Like, your son did not have a T-shirt with the word "kill" is on it, did he?
No,
Right, so, that was put in by somebody at a later point in time.
correct.
And you're saying the best of your estimation, this photograph, October of 2016?
Yep.
I would move for the admission of 29. Did you ever meet Alyssa Bledsoe or not?
She was one of the, I don't know. I've met at Ivy, but I can't say if I've ever met them or not, if she was with the group when they were come over and on their riding excursions, I wouldn't know. I didn't know anybody's names. I just knew the boys' names that I knew.
But there were some females who were also, friends with the people. I mentioned?
Ivy Bowles. Ivy was the only one I knew of the female in the group.
All right.
I knew there were a couple of them, but I don't.
When I asked you about their, their associations after November 13th, 2016, you mentioned you did see some photographs from a party, is that correct?
Right.
And it was a birthday party
Yeah,
after November 13th, correct?
I think so, yeah.
And who were the people present in the photographs you saw?
Eric, Devin, and at his time, his name was Andrew. And somebody had said something, and then they deleted that picture, so that way Andrew, all of them weren't together in the same photo.
And was Bradley there too?
He was not in those photos.
Not in that particular photo. And for your son's tablet, did you even have a password for your son's tablet? And
It wasn't my tablet, it was Grandma's tablet. She doesn't have a password, so he had one that was all on his own doing.
and did she basically give it to him to use
To use,
whenever he wanted?
yeah.
And I take it that Grandma never took the tablet back.
No, she couldn't quite use it.
Thank you.
How are you doing this afternoon now?
I think I'm more awake than I was at 7-something when we had that shaker.
Fair enough. I want to talk to you, Mr. Allmendinger. You testified at grand jury, is that correct?
Yes,
And that was back in December of 2016, is that correct?
I don't know what day, month it was, but yeah,
Back in 2016?
yeah.
Okay. And as you said, stuff in your mind was fresher than it was today, is that correct?
Yeah,
It's easier for you to remember things that were happening in 2016 in 2016?
yeah,
And you were telling the truth when you testified at grand jury, is that right?
yeah.
Now, you had met David Grunwald before, is that correct?
What?
You had met David Grunwald before,
Yeah, a couple times before, 2, maybe 3 times.
and he'd come to your house?
Yeah,
And so you knew him from coming to your house, is that correct?
yeah.
Okay. And back in 2016 at grand jury, the district attorney asked you about who was in the group, do you remember that?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Do you remember talking about whether or not Dominic Johnson was in the group?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember testifying that Dominic Johnson wasn't in the group? Page, please.
No, I don't remember.
Page 176. And if I show you some of your testimony, would you remember that?
Yeah,
Okay. Page 176, starting line 6 and going to line 15. I want you to read this to yourself. I want you to first flip to your first page so you know that's your testimony where you got sworn in. That's on page
Okay.
161. That's the question, starting actually at line 4. so, back when your memory was better, in 2016, you testified Dominic wasn't part of this group, didn't you?
Right.
In fact, you didn't know his last name, is that right?
I don't know any of their last names, but right,
And you actually said he didn't come around until later, is that right?
right.
And today you testified he was there before November 13th?
Yeah, he was before November 13th, that was, apparently he was going to school, and he'd been over before.
Okay. Do you remember seeing him before?
Before he come and spend the night? No.
Okay. Did you ever see him before November 13th at your house?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I had him spend the night at my house.
All right, I'm gonna show you page 183 of your testimony too, okay?
Okay.
Starts here. This is the next day.
Yeah, that was, but he had,
So,
'cause I had given him a ride once before to the house, but he went and got a ride back home. So that was just roughly the only time, but I never really paid attention to, but,
So-
yeah.
at the grand jury, you testified that you had never met Dominic before, that Monday afterwards. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
That was a new kid.
It was a newest kid to the group, yes.
Okay. And you had never, that was the first time you met him.
I had met him, yes, but I had seen him before.
This is what you testified to. This is your actual testimony. Monday was the next day I saw Eric. Eric and Dominic both came in the house. I had never met Dominic.
Right,
This was a new kid.
right,
This was when I first met him.
right,
That's what you testified back to in December of 2016,
right,
and you were telling the truth then?
yep,
And so the first time you met Dominic was November 14th, 2016.
meeting it means meaning different things.
How many words?
Meeting for me is meeting and introducing and talking, and that is meeting somebody. Seeing somebody, that, I've seen him, but I never met him. Then this was the first time that I finally met him.
Okay.
So, I wasn't lying, I had just met him. That means I get to know the kid, talk to the kid, get to know about him a little bit, and it, didn't really ask about a family situation, my mom did that.
And you said that, well, you just testified when Mr. Kowchek was talking to you that you didn't talk to him really at all.
That way?
You really didn't talk to Dominic at all that day.
Right, that's afterwards.
And you said that Dominic wasn't part of the group, is that right? That was your testimony back in December?
Right, he wasn't, he wasn't part of the group of people, meaning the group of them in July when we had groups of the kids.
He wasn't part of that, is that right?
No, because I never seen him in that group of the kids. But the group of the kids didn't consist of just these boys. It was a whole handful of them.
And you'd met David Grunwald before that time, is that right?
That's where yeah,
But you hadn't met Dominic before that?
not in that group, no.
Okay. And you testified also back in December he wasn't part of that group?
He was not part of that group.
I don't have any other questions.
You're talking about the initial group in July, is that what we're talking about here?
Right,
Okay. But eventually, it got to the point where you were letting Dominic Johnson stay at the house, correct?
right.
And I'm assuming this was at your son's request, not at your request, correct? Because you
Right.
were not hanging out with any of these
He
people.
comes
right?
out after they both come out from school and ask if he can stay the night, and it's like, that, you know.
And, you know, I don't know, I guess the group, I mean, you're talking about there was a group in July, right?
The group in July was a bunch of group of kids. I guess probably back then, I probably should have been a little more clear and specific. you have your group of the boys group, but there was a group of kids that Ivy and it was just a bunch of them. I must have had like 10, 12 kids at least come to the house. And in July, they were hungry and they were all on four-wheelers and bikes, and we fed them, and Mom made Ivy take a shower because she looked pretty bad.
Now, in that page that Mr. Stoller was referring to, you said, that Dominic was not in the group initially because he didn't come around until later.
Right,
That's still your position, correct?
right, because he wasn't in that group of kids.
Right, now, a couple sentences down, we had a discussion about who was the leader of the group, correct?
Right,
Did you form an opinion of who the leader of the group was?
Devin
Peterson?
Peterson.
Even of the females, or was he just?
Yep, no, he was in charge of everybody.
Everybody. Was he the oldest?
No, I don't know.
And then, as the page, still on page 176, Mr. Stoll referred you to, I asked you about Austin Berry, you said everybody calls him Andrew. And then you mentioned Bradley. Then you made a statement, quote, they're all part of that group, quote, unquote. David Evans is all part of that group. So we're still, when you were talking there on page 176, you're still talking about the group as you knew it in the summer of 2016?
Right,
And you're saying in the summer, the defendant, Dominic Johnson, did not frequent that group, correct?
I have never seen him in that group, no.
And for example, did you know where he lived or not? You just didn't know him?
No,
But you
I hadn't formally
Just-
met him until November.
14th.
I had seen him at school.
Yeah.
Actually, I had seen him before this, now that you're making me remember, outside waiting for Eric to come out, and they would chat by the door, and then Eric came in. Then it was afterwards that I got to meet Dominic. I had seen him, that's not the same thing as meeting, I finally got to meet the kid after seeing him from a distance.
And when did you first meet him, do you remember? It wasn't on the 14th of November, was it?
Right,
It was?
yeah,
Well, this is where I'm a little puzzled, because you say your definition of meeting is actually a formal introduction, people exchange names.
right.
But you've given us
But
testimony.
we didn't really, you're right.
Okay.
I had met him physically, but we didn't talk, 'cause he didn't talk, so I didn't talk. But we didn't get to really talk until later on that week when he stayed the night, and then we got to talk to get to know the boy better, know who he was, 'cause he didn't stick around all that long when we first got there.
November 1st, we called again, and a male answered and said that the number was wrong. We found another number and called again on December 4th. No answer, no voicemail. Our witness who is here, Arthur LaRue, used to be the boyfriend of Ms. Johnson. He's still friends with her. He tried to, through him, we tried to get him to contact her so we wouldn't have to go through these unpleasantries of requesting a warrant, and he was not able to get a hold of her. I do notice also that her mother was in attendance. I'm not gonna assume the worst here, but her mother was in attendance here in the audience, and this week she's not in attendance. That's defendant's grandmother.
They don't get along, so I'm,
They do and they don't, they do communicate as
But
we.
either way, she was under a subpoena to appear and she hasn't followed through.
Right, and again, the reason we went through Mr. LaRue is we wanted to avoid the warrant and all that, but we would ask at this time for material witness warrant. And the court remembers her testimony, she has important testimony regarding, contact with the defendant soon after the murder, disposal of the hoodie and the jeans that he wore.
That was the unintentional disposal was
Right.
the testimony, right?
right? And, you know, also she likely had some communications with him. I'm not saying he made any statements to her about the murder, but she did have communications with him. So we would ask for a warrant at this time, and we'd rather ask for it now, so we have we can put people on it, so we can secure her attendance before the end of the week.
I think she needs an attorney appointed. I'd ask for Fifth Amendment counsel for her to be appointed.
I will when they pick her up, so I will issue the warrant, so. I
she-
mean, I'll talk to her anyway, so.
Okay. Mr. LaRue says that he thinks that she doesn't have a cell phone anymore, so that makes it even harder for us to get a hold of her, but seems like she's kind of faded away.
Okay.
Mr. LaRue's here, so I talked to
Oh,
Mr.
what is her name exactly for the record?
yes.
Log note to that effect.
I was just gonna, well, I have just a copy of, I'll just give a copy of the subpoena to the court clerk,
Okay.
because it shows the service on there.
All right. We will submit that as an exhibit. I think we'll mark it and have it as a record, yeah. We're just gonna mark that as an exhibit, so we have a record of it.
Thank you.
What number are we on? Any idea?
We're at 168, but then we had 170, so I'm not exactly sure.
We're at 273.
Okay.
What item was it, I'm sorry?
Huh?
273.
273.
What was 273?
Oh, we're just gonna mark the subpoena so that we know that we have it as a record.
I got you.
I don't know is it just, we're gonna have any monetary amount, it's just a warrant for her arrest?
That's it.
Just a warrant for her arrest at this point, okay.
Zero witness warrant.
Now, so with Mr. LaRue, on to the next subject, this is one where Mr. Stoller thought that Mr. LaRue had some rights to an attorney, or may want an attorney. He testified previously, he showed up today voluntarily. I had about a 1-minute discussion with him on the bench out there, asked him if he feels comfortable proceeding without an attorney, or whether he would like to explore the possibility of getting an attorney, and he told me that his preference is to proceed without an attorney. If, you know, if the court wants me to do that on the record with him, outside the presence of the jury, I would be more than glad to do the same thing I just did in the hallway here in court, to put it on the record.
I think it needs to come from the court.
Huh?
I think it needs to come from the court.
Well, I need to
Well,
question him, so. I
I'm
mean,
not sure
I'm-
why,
well-
I'm not sure if there's any law that says the court has to remind witnesses that they could have attorneys.
Well, you're requiring him to testify, correct?
Right, we are.
Okay, so that's the first application that is done under the statute. The second one is that, as an offer of proof, do you believe that he's subject to any sort of criminal charges based upon his testimony?
I don't, because my belief is that we can't charge him because there's no corpus to the crime, so we don't have any of the stuff he got rid of. And according to my reading of the case law, a prosecution cannot just be based on a person's admission, because there wouldn't be any corpus, you just have the admission. So my feeling is that he is not subject to prosecution.
And his testimony is gonna be exactly the same as it was in the first trial?
I presume that his
Same questions, same subject matter?
Same subject matter.
Okay, well, I'm still gonna have to bring him in and ask him if he would like to have an attorney.
That's fine,
for it.
Judge, I mean, I have no problem with that, I mean,
Okay, why don't you have him step on in?
okay,
Is he gonna be your next witness?
no, but he'll be the second in line.
But let's go ahead and get this done. And this is under 1250-101, immunity statute. Huh? This is LaRue, Arthur LaRue?
Arthur LaRue,
L-A-R-U-E?
correct. And of course, Judge, I didn't tell him in advance that the court would be
Okay,
doing this.
so just have a seat by that mic over there, okay? And how are you doing today?
All right.
Okay. My understanding is, Mr. LaRue, you understand that you have been subpoenaed to testify in this trial.
Yeah.
You testified in the very first trial, correct?
Yes.
You testified under oath?
Yes.
And in that trial, you were advised of your Fifth Amendment right to have an attorney, were you not?
Yeah.
And what did you choose to do in that case?
To talk, give my testimony?
Did you request an attorney?
No.
And you testified under oath in that matter?
Right.
So my understanding is the state has made an offer of proof that you'll be testifying to the same subject matter as you did last time.
Yes.
But you have a right under the Alaska statutes, the Constitution, and your Fifth Amendment privileges to be represented by an attorney. An attorney can be appointed to represent you and can evaluate on whether you have any Fifth Amendment rights in this case.
Okay.
And my question is, do you want to do that? That is your right.
Well, I'm not, I don't understand, like, what, we didn't go through.
Well,
this.
last time we talked about it and you declined to have an attorney.
they talked to him last time, but
I did. I'm not sure if we did it on the record, but
No, that's why I'm kind of confused.
Okay.
Right, we didn't, I don't think we did this inquiry, but I think, the court questioned me, whether we had this discussion, and I verified, I did speak with Mr. LaRue about it, gave him those options, and he decided to go forward with an attorney, but I don't think we did this formal inquiry.
Okay, well,
I
that
just
might
don't think
be,
it came-
but,
I don't think it got to that point.
but anyway, in this matter, you would have a right to have an attorney. And that attorney could evaluate whether or not you have a privilege, okay, to not testify.
Okay.
But the question is, do you understand that?
Well, I do, but I didn't have to do this before, now I'm like, kind of,
No, I guess, I'm just asking this as an abundance of caution. If something has changed since the last time, where you want to basically say, I'd like to have an attorney before I testify.
yeah, no, nothing's changed, except for this.
Hmm. Oh, except for coming back in
Well, you bringing me in here,
to talk to you independently?
so,
Well, do you well, I'm a little lost. Last time you told me you didn't think you'd need, I mean, you came in and you testified, you didn't assert any privilege.
right.
This time, I'm just double checking and making sure that you don't want to have something has come up that you think you need to have an attorney this time.
I don't know, I don't think so. And nothing's changed.
And my understanding from the state, as an offer of proof, the testimony's gonna be exactly the same.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's the same same questions. I mean, I can't say what the answers will be, but I'm assuming that it's gonna be similar if he's gonna be under oath. He obviously knows that we had that last trial.
And your evaluation of his testimony last time is that did not subject to him to any criminal charges. I mean, you're the state, you're the district
Oh, say that
attorney.
again, Judge?
I said his testimony last time did not subject
Well-
him to any criminal charges.
Yeah, I think we all know that the trial in May, he testified. We had that information at that point. He hasn't been charged with any.
And you don't intend on charging him
I don't have any intent to charge him.
as a representative of the state.
No, I don't have any, that's not the focus. I think,
is that a grant of immunity?
No, but it's on the record, so.
I mean, I think we all can tell that he testified. He hasn't been charged at this point.
And you're willing to testify to that extent again?
Yeah,
Pardon?
yes.
Okay, I think we're fine. We already have his testimony on record, so I think we're good. All right, sir, you can step out. So who's gonna be your next witness?
Well, is the jury still waiting, Judge? We do have one, I forgot, we have one more witness that we need to get, that we're gonna be asking for a material witness warrant for.
Okay, and who is that?
And that's Alyssa Bledsoe.
Okay,
She testified previously in the other trial with some reluctance, but she,
well, isn't she a ward of the state? So what is her status in her China case?
She's still has an active China case.
Yeah, but where's her placements? What's,
As of about 12:30 today, she ran away from her placement. She left a note.
okay, as of she left today?
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty, well, I will issue a material warrant for her. She's under subpoena?
She was served a subpoena yesterday at our office to be here at 1:15.
Okay.
Have a moment to make a phone call.
Huh?
Have a moment to make a phone call.
Yeah, go ahead. Does your office represent her?
It wasn't, I don't want to testify, it was more, I'm not going to testify.
Does she have an attorney representing her in the China case? Sometimes that age do.
Sometimes they do, I don't know.
Do you know who her GAL is?
Miss Levitt's or GAO.
That sounds like a lawyer or a GAL. But not in.
No, not usually.
Sometimes they
Usually
have
they have a
separate
separate
attorney,
attorney that can be
I
appointed
would
to.
have to ask for one.
Huh? They would have to, she would have to ask her if she's in a disagreement with her GAL.
Right.
Okay, well, I think what we should maybe do is call Miss Levitt on the phone. I can at least advise her I'm doing this as her GAL. I think that would be the proper thing to do, so. Do we have her phone number?
I don't know if they're administratively off today or not.
Oh, they're closed
They,
too?
office probably got, this was closed today, I know she worked yesterday, I don't know what her status is today.
Okay.
And on that same note, there's nobody in the state offices today that enter these warrants. They're gonna send them to MATCOM, but they can't guarantee that they'll be in the system.
For the next day or two?
And nobody's answering the phone over, I gotta answer the phone.
Yeah, there's nobody working at JS, so.
well, if we get a paper copy of them, it should help us.
Or the court marking it as there.
Yeah, just so we have a record of what the subpoena date is.
So it's not answering the phone.
Oh, 274.
Theoretically, these are the two of jury at the end, right? At least two of jury.
No, but we can, I just want them filed
Yes.
with the
Okay, so I will-
court, so I have them in the file to show proof of service of the witnesses. So we can mark them as,
I could mark them as filed in open court, which would be far more appropriate
That's
than
just-
making them a piece of.
but I just want them in file, so that'll work fine.
So I can use those exhibit numbers.
Yeah, you can, we won't use them as exhibits, but I do want them marked and in the file, so there's a record of it. So otherwise, I have no legal justification issuing warrants. Need that in the file. Okay, so if we don't get a hold of Ms. Levitt, we'll take a brief recess, and you need to go make your phone call?
Yes, please.
Just as long as we know, like, Mr. Stoller doesn't represent Ms. Blitz, so let's be clear about that. So.
I can get her file over here, that's.
I don't represent this board, so,
Okay.
and I don't think I represent her by the parents' office, so I'm pretty sure it's conflict we would check for. I don't even know who they are, so.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in terms of making arguments against the issuance of the warrant, I don't know if Mr. Stoller has the proper legal standing to object to the issuance of the warrant.
I don't think he is at this point, so.
And, Your Honor, I do have a copy of the the note that Ms. Bledsoe left. I don't know if the court maybe want to make a copy for the record and for defense counsel, or.
Yeah, go ahead. But again, it's not gonna be an exhibit to the jury.
Right, no.
It's just in support of your subpoena and your request for a warrant?
Yes.
Okay. This will be marked the same way, just filed with the court, but not as an exhibit.
Yeah, again, it was still our hope that she would change her mind and do,
Well-
and here today, as with Ms. Johnson, we would hope that she would contact her office. We don't want to add other people to the pretrial facility.
Yeah, she wouldn't be held there. So. They may actually, sometimes they may issue a warrant to pick them up in the China case too, as a runaway, so if that happens.
Right, and I know Ms. Bledsoe wouldn't be going to the adult facility.
I'm gonna ask, somebody text Emily, see if she can find out, or someone pull me that China. Whatever, do you have a date of birth on the subpoena?
Yeah, we've got a date birth on this. I've given all that information to the Department of Justice.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this case, now before this court, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. You may be seated. If you could please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
My name is Jamie Barenkoff, JamieBarenCoff.
Your occupation?
I'm a forensic chemist.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Barenkoff, where do you work?
I work for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives Forensic Science Laboratory.
And where is that located?
That's in Walnut Creek, California.
And how long have you been there?
I've been there since November of 2009.
And what is your official title there at the lab?
I'm a forensic chemist.
And what is it that you do at the lab?
My main specialty is fire debris analysis, so I analyze evidence in fire investigations and issue a report of my findings.
And when you say you analyze evidence, what types of evidence do you see come through your lab?
Really anything that's related to a fire investigation. It can be liquids, it can be debris from a scene, or it can be clothing or anything.
And what agents, as far as getting evidence, getting your lab involved, can you tell the jury how that works? How does your lab get involved in an investigation?
So typically, any evidence that we receive is received through an ATF special agent. So sometimes we assist local laboratories, but everything comes through a special agent when it comes to our laboratory.
And can you describe your training related to fire debris analysis?
Of course. So my training lasted about 10 months, and it was several modules that covered all aspects of fire debris analysis. So each module had written exercises and practical exercises, and then an exam at the end of each module. And then my training culminated in several mock cases as well as supervised cases under an experienced examiner.
And did your training include the different types of fire debris that you previously talked about?
Yes, I learned about extraction techniques and classifying ignitable liquids and other things like that.
And can you describe your educational background for the jury?
I have a bachelor's from the University of California, San Diego in biochemistry, and I have a master's degree from Michigan State University in forensic chemistry.
And are you a member of any professional organizations?
Yes, I'm a member of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, or AAFS, the American Society for Trace Evidence Examiners, and the California Conference of Arson Investigators.
And have you published any peer-reviewed papers?
Yes, I've published papers in the Journal of Forensic Sciences as well as Forensic Science International.
How about presented any research to a scientific audience? Have you done anything like that?
Yes, I've presented several research projects at the annual meeting for the American Academy of Forensic Sciences.
And have you previously testified in this field in the past?
Yes.
And how many states have you provided testimony in?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I've testified 8 times.
Okay. And do you provide, as your employment with the federal lab, do you provide testimony in the United States, all the different states?
Yes,
And have you previously been qualified as an expert in those, different states?
yes,
You ever been qualified in Alaska?
no,
You ever been to Alaska?
on a cruise when I was a kid.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm gonna move to qualify in the area of fire debris analysis.
Jeff, will you approach?
Yep. Go off record for a minute. Let Mr. Stoll.
Just got notice for an expert after the trial started.
What published articles does she have?
She has about half a dozen, maybe, or 5. She has an evaluation of persistence of ignitable liquids on unburned fabrics in the Fire and Arson Investigator Volume 68, Issue 1. You know, I usually try to Google these things and read them before I cross-examine somebody.
And what day did you get notice?
I got her notice on November 23rd of this month, last month, November.
Okay, but you never got a CV.
I don't believe I've ever received a CV. I did.
Can you guys confirm whether you got a CV or not?
Well, we have some explanation on too. I mean, I'll agree, of course, we would like to have the notices out earlier, but there are we're pushing a lot of paper in this case, we're doing a lot of things, and we really literally have had, at times, one paralegal in our office, working on thousands of cases.
Well, I'm not gonna preclude her from testifying, but I have to give him a continuance.
No, I just wanna explain some things to the court. I asked a paralegal to get in touch with Ms. Barenkoff, while the paralegal who's on this case was on leave. That wasn't accomplished. We didn't have the CV, so she brought it with her, and we had to get in touch with this witness through the ATF agent. We don't have a direct number, direct link to the witness, so we had to, when Ms. Vanas came back, she did what I asked Ms. Anthony to do previously before the trial, and she did get in touch with the ATF, who in turn put us in touch with Ms. Barenkoff, so she brought her CV with us. I don't recall seeing one beforehand. I understand it's, obviously we would have provided it to counsel, but also we provided all the expert materials a number of times that they basically had it for a year, so I mean, they could have asked or they could have Googled, but I know it's our obligation, but that's the reason why they didn't get it, is because we didn't have it in our hands.
So what are you requesting, Mr. Stoll?
I'm just gonna ask that you be precluded. I think it's a late notice. I think,
Well, I'm gonna deny that. I don't see the prejudice if you've had her reports and her lab notes and everything else. So you've got her work product as far as what she's gonna testify. Your concern is that as far as her qualifications, can she be challenged as to what she's written previously, and does that provide you subject matter for cross-examination? And that's a fair request. But to get prep for that, I think I can give you some time, continuance, and then you can, that'll give you a chance to do that, so. Where, did you guys fly her up?
Did we fly her up? That's,
To the state?
we asked for her to fly up,
Under subpoena.
under
That's
subpoena. It's, we didn't provide the funds. I think the federal government provided the funds just because
Well, she's under subpoena at this point, right?
she is.
Okay. So how much time do you think you need, Mr. Stoll?
I want to be able to read those articles. And I assume that I can probably, and I will ask her this question, can I Google those and find those?
Yeah, you may need, access to the journal itself,
Okay.
but they're all on Google. You can
That's
find
why they provide them, to give, research to the opposing side, so. Alrighty, well, I guess, why don't you talk to your witness and see when we can have her come back, so.
Well, if we could get, how long does defense counsel want? I didn't hear him asking.
I like to read the articles. If they want to do the direct exam, I might not have a ton of questions for her, but it's one of those things.
Well, why don't we do this?
This
Why
is
don't you
why
do
I
your
think she should
direct
be-
exam, and then you'll have to make her available for cross-examination at some point, and if,
We'd have to bring her back in the morning.
huh?
Are we
Well,
talking this week? Is that what we're talking, just like tomorrow, or?
Well, I don't know, Mr. Stoller.
This is the thing, you get this information in the middle of the trial.
Well,
Well, let's see, what's the best for,
Who are they calling tomorrow? Depends
Who-
what else I'm prepping for tomorrow.
who are you calling tomorrow?
Oh, we can, we have a number of witnesses set. I believe it's in the morning. Mike Plachinsky, Investigator Ballesteros, the representative from the Holiday gas station to get the video of them buying gas. Trooper Somerville, yes, in the morning.
What if we slotted her in for tomorrow afternoon?
I'm fine with that. I don't think
Just
we'll have as
do-
many questions, because I do know they bought gas. So.
Right, that's why, yeah.
Which is why they can not call her.
Well, that's true, but, obviously, Judge, I know that there are deadlines in the criminal system, but basically, the deadlines are rarely met by either party. But,
There always is a right to be able to evaluate the.
no, I understand that, and like I said, it's not like we're on any superior footing, because we just got the CV. Honestly, do we have time to read all those articles? No, but I can see that the defense might want to explore the contents of those
Well,
articles.
let's do the following, let's do her Dreck examination, and can she stay overnight? That's the question.
I have a flight scheduled for tomorrow at 1:20 out of Anchorage.
20 out of Anchorage, because we do it right in the morning. Think-
Sure.
Huh?
If I can find those articles.
Okay. Let's
What
do
you
that,
need-
huh?
What, you need any passwords?
I don't know, because our agency pays for access to the articles, so you have to pay for access.
You
But,
provide them to the state?
I think I have them on my computer. I think I can do that.
Would you be willing to provide them to the state so they can provide you?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, let's just do that. That'll give you an opportunity to at least read those. And who else do you have for today?
Mr. LaRue, who was just here.
Okay, that's it?
Yes.
So that'll be,
Well, Ms. Bledsoe was the other witness, and Ms. Johnson.
but either way, that's fairly quick, so that'll give Mr. Stoller a little more time to do,
Yep.
to finish, prepare for this witness. If
If I can get them sooner.
we're done by 3 or 3 o'clock,
Not- That's more from you than me, sorry. Not that I was.
I think, matter of fact, you could probably maybe go over to your office and get it right away after we're done, so.
I'm happy to do that.
Sure.
I think that would work best, and gives you a little more time to go through them for tomorrow, okay? All right, so let's bring the jury in, we'll do the direct, and we'll go ahead and ask to hold her over for tomorrow, we'll bring her back in the morning, and then we'll go from there. Okay, please be seated, everybody. You may proceed with your direct examination.
So, Ms. Barankoff, how did you then, can you tell the jury how you became involved with this case?
So the evidence was shipped to our laboratory in Walnut Creek and was received on December 9th, 2016. And then I checked the evidence out of the evidence room on December 12th of 2016.
And when you say the evidence, what are you speaking of?
There were 3 items that were sent in gallon paint cans.
And how did the items come to your lab?
They were shipped via FedEx.
And what happens to the items once they get to the lab?
So when they get to the lab, they're checked into our evidence room and they keep track of all the evidence. And then I go to the evidence room to check the evidence out.
And before you did your testing, did you have any information as far as like the background of the case or any of the suspected allegations or anything like that? Are you privy to any kind of that type of information?
The only information that I had was that the evidence was collected from a car.
So how do you get assigned to a case?
Our section chief assigns our cases.
And how many chemists are there in your section?
There's 2 chemists that do fire debris analysis.
So the evidence was received in your lab, that's the 3 gallon paint cans, December 9th, and then you checked them out December 12th.
Yes.
And then what do you do?
So after I check the evidence out, I do a quick opening inventory just to ensure that everything the investigator meant to send to me is what I received, and then I proceed with my analysis.
And when you did the open and inventory, did everything appear to be there, what you expected to receive?
Yes.
And how did you analyze each can?
So for the cans, what I do is a passive headspace extraction, and then after the extraction, I analyze the extract by gas chromatography mass spectrometry, or GCMS for short, to make it easy.
So you do first a passive headspace extraction?
Yes.
Okay, what is that?
So a passive headspace extraction, what I do is I take a small strip and I put it inside the can with the evidence and I seal it back up. And then I heat the can overnight, and what happens is anything that can turn into a vapor in the can does turn into a vapor, and then it can stick onto that carbon strip. And then the next day after the extraction, I rinse the strip off, and that rinse I analyze using the GCMS.
With the strip that you put in each can, is there, before you do the testing, is there anything in particular that you're looking for? Like, how do you know to use that strip? Can you explain that a little bit?
That's a pretty standard analysis in fire debris. That's how we do most of our extractions, is with the charcoal strip in the can.
And what do you expect the charcoal strip to do, though? Like, what is it reading in that can?
So what's happening is that we're getting kind of a snapshot of all of the vapors that are in that can. Everything sticks onto that strip, and so I can see pretty much the contents of the can chemically.
And are you ever taking any of the contents out of the can?
No.
So with these particular cans, let's start with, can you tell a jury which, as far as the gallon cans, did you have the information where the debris came from for each can?
Yes.
Okay, and so just starting with number 1, where did the first gallon can debris come from?
I believe it came from the passenger side.
Is that the passenger side floorboard?
Yes.
And how about gallon 2?
The number 2 came from the driver's side.
Again, the compartment floorboard?
Yes.
And the third can?
Came from the back seat floorboard.
So you put the strip in each of the cans one at a time, and then it's heated overnight?
Yes.
And then what happens the next day?
So the next day, when I take the can out of the oven, I remove the strip, and I rinse the strip with a solvent to get everything off of the strip, and then I analyze the rinse using the GCMS.
And can you just briefly describe the GCMS? Is it just an instrument that?
Yeah, so the GCMS is a 2-part instrument. When I rinse the strip off, what I have in my solvent is a complex mixture, and that mixture can contain a few chemical components or it can contain up to hundreds of chemical components. So to be able to look at all of these components, I use the GCMS. The GC part just separates the mixture into each individual component, and then the mass spec is able to identify each of those components. And then the output of the GCMS is a graph with a series of peaks, where each peak is going to represent a component within that mixture.
And then what, if anything, do you need to do with the graphs?
So typically what I do with the graphs, this is what I always do with the graphs.
In this case, what did you do with the graphs?
So with the graphs, I look for patterns that indicate ignitable liquids. So looking for specific peaks and specific ratios. And then if I see those peaks and those ratios, I compare that pattern to a reference ignitable liquid to see if they're consistent.
And does your lab have like a list or a book of referenced ignitable liquids?
There are references published, but we also have a reference collection in our lab that has over 700 ignitable liquids in it.
Are any of those ignitable reference liquids particular to Alaska?
We have some gasoline samples that have been collected from Alaska.
So in this case, then you put back to your process, you put the strips in the GCMS?
So the strips are in the evidence cans, and then we rinse the strips off, and it's the rinse that we put onto the GCMS.
And then in this case, when you did that, did you get a result for each of the cans?
Yes.
Okay, so let me start with the can number 1 that came from the passenger side floorboard. What were your results for that?
I identified gasoline in the can.
And how about can number 2, which the driver's side passenger compartment floorboard?
I identified gasoline.
And can number 3, the rear back seat floorboard?
I did not identify any ignitable liquids in can 3.
So the 2 cans from the front compartment identified with gasoline, the can from the back seat did not.
Correct.
And can you tell the jury about how do you ensure that there's not any contamination within the debris?
Yeah,
or
so
the testing?
of course. So during the extraction, I do what's called a system blank. And a system blank is just an empty can that I prepare in the exact way that I'm preparing all of the exhibits. So the charcoal strip goes in that can, it gets heated and all of that. And that's just to ensure that during our extraction procedure, we're not introducing any contamination. And then as far as the GCMS goes, every day that we run a case, we run a quality control sample just to show the instrument is working properly. And then we also run blanks before every sample on the instrument just to show the instrument itself is free of contamination.
And just to clarify, your testing is looking for ignitable liquids?
Yes.
And in this case, for the first 2 gallons, your results were that those gallons contained gasoline, which
Correct.
is an ignitable liquid.
Yes,
And the 3rd can did not.
correct. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, and then we're gonna resume this tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna go ahead and let her step down and come back tomorrow morning, okay? All right. Okay, your next witness.
Arthur LaRue is our next witness.
he was in the hallway, sometimes they don't know exactly when we're gonna call him in, so we're gonna go to the bathroom or whatnot.
Sir, would you remain standing and please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this case, now before the court, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may be seated. If you could please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Arthur LaRue, ARTHURLARUE.
Your occupation?
I'm a cook.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Weaver. Tell me, how long have you lived in the Mat-Su Valley?
26 years.
And let me run some names by you. First of all, Dominic Johnson, are you familiar with him?
Yes.
And he's in the courtroom today, correct? He's sitting in, can you tell me where he's sitting, just so we know we're talking about the right person?
Yep, right there.
In the white shirt?
Yes.
And how did you get to know Dominic Johnson?
I was with his mother for probably 8 years.
As his mother's boyfriend? And the mother's name, his mother's name, can you tell me what her name is?
Misty Johnson.
And so tell me, what years were you in a relationship with Misty Johnson?
2007 to 2015, 14, something like that.
Now, after you were no longer in a relationship, did you still remain friends with Misty Johnson? Are you still friends with her today?
Yes.
Now, and how did you get to know the defendant, in this case, Dominic Johnson?
Well, it was her son.
Right, did you live with Misty?
Yeah, we lived together.
And which year, what years were those again?
Pretty much the whole time we were together.
And did Dominic Johnson live in the same household?
Yeah, he lived with us for 4 years.
And let me ask you, so when did what year did you stop living in the same house as Dominic?
Well, we had a place together and then we moved out. So we finally got our own place together and then Dominic moved in with us.
Okay, you got your place, Dominic.
So it was like, I don't know, 3 years?
So he used to live with his grandmother, right?
Right.
And then he moved in with you and Misty?
Right.
And what year was that he moved in with you and Misty?
Oh, I think 2011.
And then eventually both of you broke up
Right.
and you started living in separate places?
Yeah, no, and then we broke up and moved out of our place together.
And what year was that?
2014 maybe?
So you haven't lived in the same house as Dominic Johnson since 2014, roughly?
Right, yeah, about, yeah.
But you still continue to see him once in a while? Let's talk about November of 2016. Were you still friends with Misty during that time?
Yes.
Now, were you, living in the valley, were you aware that in November of 2016, there was news that a young man was missing in Palmer?
Yes.
David Grunwald? You heard that name?
Yes, yes.
So you're aware of that. Did there come a time in November of 2016 where you went to Misty's house and she gave you some things for you to get rid of?
It was in November, it was in December.
December of 2016, all right.
Right.
Tell me what precipitated you coming to her house?
I just stopped by there after work one night, and that's why if I can remember correctly, but yeah, I just stopped by there after work.
Okay. And then you just stopped by there one time and she said, here or some things I need you to get rid of?
Right.
Or did she call you or text you first to make you stop by, to have you stop by?
I can't remember exactly.
All right, but nonetheless, so December of 2016, you went to her house?
Mhm.
Where was she living at that time?
At her grandfather's,
In
Wasilla.
Wasilla? And who was living with her?
Her kids, Dominic and Taven.
And Dominic and Taven? And was Dominic there on that day? Dominic Johnson?
I don't remember.
And did the grandfather, did he live there too?
Yes,
And was he there that day?
I don't remember.
All right, so you stopped by for some other reason, right?
Well, it was on my way home. I don't remember why exactly I stopped by.
All right, but it wasn't for the purpose of obtaining anything from her, was it?
I don't.
As far as you
think so.
remember?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. So when you got there, tell us what happened.
She gave me a bag and told me, get this out of here.
Okay. And did she hand you a bag?
Right.
What color bag was it?
I don't remember.
Was it paper or
It
plastic?
was just like a garbage bag.
All right. And the items that were inside of it, hard items, soft items, heavy items? Just when she first handed it to you, can you tell what it was or not?
Well, it was just lit soft. Wasn't heavy or nothing.
And those were her exact words, just get rid of these, or did she say a little bit more when she gave you those items?
No,
No?
no, 'cause I didn't realize what was going on.
All right. No, did she have a car during this time?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure whether she was able to get around?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
She could have been totally stationary at home, or?
Yeah, I don't know, I don't remember whether she had a car, 'cause, I had just bought a car from her, so.
All right. But anyway, was this some kind of huge bag, or just
No, just a little bag.
like a kitchen garbage bag?
Right.
Or- All right. And did you ask any questions, like, why are you giving this to me? What do you want me to do with these things?
No, not at the time.
All right. You didn't find that unusual at all, that you come by to visit and she's?
Yeah,
No?
I did,
What's that?
I did.
You did. But you didn't wanna make a big deal out of it, or you didn't wanna start a fight, or what?
I didn't realize what was going on. I didn't really think anything of it.
Okay. So you take the bag, right? And did you stay and socialize, or was it pretty much you got there, here's the bag, get rid of this, goodbye?
Yeah, no, I stayed there for a little bit,
Right. But she didn't give you an explanation
not at the
of
time.
what's in the bag, why she wanted to get rid of
Not,
it?
not at the time.
Okay. So then, how far away did you live from Misty on that day?
Maybe 7, 8 miles.
And what did you do with the bag?
I went to my house, I went home.
And did she give you any particular directions, like throw away, burn?
Also hearsay.
Well, it's not hearsay, it's not for the truth of the matter, sir, it's what she told him to do with the
For his
evidence.
state of mind, that's fine. What he did. Go ahead.
Did she tell you particularly what to do with them?
I don't remember exactly.
Did you look inside the
I did.
bag eventually? Was it in your car? Would you look at it in your car, or did you?
No, it was after I got home.
And what did you see inside the bag?
Some clothes.
Now, did you remember testifying at the last trial that you were supposed to burn them, but you did something different? Is that?
Well, I told her that I did, but I
Right.
just threw them away.
Okay, so did you tell her on the phone, or how did you tell her?
I think in text message.
And tell me, what was in the bag specifically, what type of clothes?
Just a sweatshirt and some pants.
And what type of pants were they?
I think they were just jeans.
And what colors, do you know anything about the sweatshirt color? Was it a hoodie?
Yeah, I think it was a hoodie.
Anything about the color? Was it one color, or did it have different colors?
I don't remember, like, I didn't take it out of the bag or anything, so I don't know whether it had anything on it.
And were these items folded in the bag, or were they just crumpled, you know, did it look like they were just tossed?
I think they were folded.
Okay. And then tell us, what did you do with the bag and the items
Threw it in my dumpster.
at your apartment? Was it, you live in an apartment, or
Yeah, at my house.
at your house, there's a dumpster there?
Yeah, just a little trash can.
Oh, the one you take out to the street?
Right.
Okay, so you threw it in there, and then eventually did a garbage company, a trash removal company pick up the
Yeah.
garbage, and the items went along with the other garbage? Okay. Do you have any subsequent conversations with Ms. Johnson about these items?
Yeah, eventually.
Like what type of conversation?
Well, she told me that it was what Dominic was wearing when he showed him.
Well, this goes to, and well, she's a witness, I'll change it, because we expect her to be here. So without getting into what was said, did you have a subsequent conversation with her?
Yeah.
Let me just focus on what you told her. What did you tell her you did with those items?
I told her that I burned them.
And was that the truth, or was that a lie?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
All right. And what would be the reason that you told her you burned them versus throwing them in your?
I don't remember exactly like the whole reason why I told her that.
Okay. Did you tell them that because burning them would be a situation where they couldn't be found later someplace else, or to make her feel
I
better?
don't know.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Now, also, as it relates to this case, did you see or hear a recording about where Dominic Johnson talked about hitting somebody in the head?
I heard something.
Tell me the circumstances, how you heard this.
Somebody played it on the phone. It was just it was just audio. I just heard.
All right, and where did this happen? At Misty's house?
Right.
And was it Andrea Cullington or Andrea Hone that had the,
I think so.
all right, and tell me how that came about. How was it that Andrea Cullington was playing?
I don't remember how it exactly it came about, but I heard it.
And did you understand it related to the David Grunwald case?
No.
Basis of the objection.
It's called speculation.
Well,
Lay a foundation.
okay, so let me get more details. You were again at Misty's house, right? And this was after you got rid of the clothes, correct? And did the clothes look like a guy's clothes versus a female's clothes? Had you seen Dominic wearing those clothes before?
No. I mean,
You wouldn't?
I didn't take them out. I didn't look at
All
them
right,
like
so
that.
you didn't inspect them carefully enough to know whether they were?
No.
Okay. How many days after you disposed of the clothes that you were back at Misty Johnson's house?
I don't remember.
But it was after you got rid of the clothes, right? Or was it before?
I think so.
Okay. And Andrea Cullington was at Misty Johnson's house?
Right.
And is she a younger person, or, yes?
Yes.
And is she friends with you, or do you just know of her?
And I've never met her before.
Never met her before, all right. And then, she had a phone on her person?
Yeah.
And was she?
Well, I don't know if it was hers, but.
Oh, she had a phone in her hand,
Right.
and she was playing a clip for Misty?
She was just playing, I don't remember exactly the situation, but
And you're saying that you were within earshot, or were you
Right.
watching this thing?
yeah, no, I just heard it.
All right, and what did you hear on the recording?
somebody said I hit him in the head.
And was it Dominic's voice?
Well, it's kinda hard to hear, but yeah, I thought so.
Okay. Anything else on the recording that you remember?
No, that's all I heard. It was like really short.
And was there a discussion between you and Misty, or Misty and Andrea, or you and Andrea, about what all of you just heard, or not?
Yeah, Andrea said that it was, it happened.
Okay.
That, too.
I'll grant that objection.
Anybody ask you to get rid of that phone or not?
No.
But the recording definitely said something about hitting somebody on the head, is that correct?
Yes.
And without getting into what was said, did you see Misty Johnson's facial reaction or expressions when she was listening to this?
Not that I can recall.
And how many times was the recording played? Was it just played once by Andrea
Yeah.
Collington, or more than once?
No.
What's that?
Just once.
And you didn't possess this on your phone, is that correct? Were there any discussions about getting rid of that recording, or keeping that?
Not to me.
I'll let that one go.
Some of the others, are you familiar with Austin Barrett?
Yeah.
And you familiar with Bradley Renfro?
Yeah, I met them.
All right, and did you know them as friends of the defendants?
Right. Yes.
And did you meet them at Misty's house
Yes.
during a holiday, or during?
Right. Yes.
What day was that?
They came over for Thanksgiving.
At Misty's?
Yes.
And was Dominic Johnson there?
Nope.
Did he ever show up that day or not?
I don't remember.
But
They,
they,
they didn't have a place to go, so we offered they could come over there and have Thanksgiving with us.
and, so that was Thanksgiving of 2016, correct? And had you known them from before, or was that
I had met them before.
under,
They came over the house before.
to hang out with Dominic?
I don't remember exactly, but I had met them before.
And this Andrea, I asked you, was she younger? Is she about the age of Dominic Johnson and Bradley Renfro?
Yes.
Hello, how you doing this afternoon? You dated Misty for how long?
8 years or so?
Okay, and of those 8 years, how many of those years did you guys live together?
We lived together the whole time, but we didn't have our own place together
Okay,
the whole time.
gotcha. And Dominic only lived with you 3 of those years, is that right?
Right,
And Dominic lived with his grandmother, is that correct?
yes,
And she also lived in the valley?
yes.
And on Thanksgiving, and besides, let me back up, Misty has 2 sons, is that right?
Right.
What's the name of the other son?
David.
And Taven was also friends with the gentleman Austin and,
I wouldn't say he was friends with them. He
Okay.
knew he knew him.
okay, on Thanksgiving, was Taven home?
Yes.
And Dominic was not?
I don't know. I don't think he was there.
And sometimes Dominic lived with his grandmother, is that right?
Right.
And so if he wasn't at that house, he would potentially live with his grandmother?
Well, that's what I thought. I wasn't living with him at the time, so.
Okay. But when you were there, you didn't observe Dominic at the house?
No,
But Taven, you did observe at the house?
right.
Yeah. You never talked to Dominic about the clothing?
Nope,
Only talked to Misty about it?
correct.
And at some point, you became aware that the police got Misty's phone, is that right?
Correct,
And you knew there was discussions about the clothing on the phone?
yes.
And you thought you might have destroyed evidence, is that right?
Well, that's what I thought at the time. I mean, afterwards.
And that was something you were concerned about, is that right?
Correct.
And you were concerned about whether or not you might get charged with a crime, is that right?
Right.
And the statement about Dominic hitting somebody on the head, you didn't hear who he hit on the head, is that right?
No.
And you only told the police about that after you were concerned that you might be charged with a crime, is that right?
Well, Dave brought it up to me and asked me about
They
it.
asked you about it, but that was also when they were asking you about what you did with the clothing, is that right?
Correct.
And you were concerned about your own welfare, whether or not you might be charged with a crime?
Well, yeah.
And that's when you answered the questions about the head hitting, is that right?
Right.
I don't have any other questions.
Any follow-up? All right, thank you, sir. You can be excused. They have another witness for today?
Can we approach the bench?
Those can be excused for today. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. Oh, well, 8:45, we'll start at 9. Okay, same time.
Oh, she's working on it.
Area, probably a trooper post. She claims that she's been trying to get a hold of our office, which I find hard to believe, because we've been open during the we were open. We were there on Friday, if I can get Ms. Vanas to talk about the subpoena and the contact number and whatnot, and have her give some testimony, but I know that, we have that issue. We do want to get Ms. Barankoff back to California tomorrow afternoon.
How much time do you think you're gonna need, Mr. Stoller? I think I can bring Ms. Johnson over in the morning, so. I set her bail at $500.
I'd rather not have
cash.
her held overnight if she doesn't need to be held overnight, and if she's going to serve the Fifth Amendment.
So if Mr. Stoller would rather, those things at night,
Let's bring her on over.
we can bring her over, then we can at least take care of that issue of whether she wants an attorney,
That's
and
fine.
whether there should be a higher bail, given, if, for example, if she says she's been trying to contact her office and that proves to be a lie, that could be a reason for there being a different bail.
Plenty of times I've tried to contact the DA's office and not gotten a person.
Well, and if I get her here, she might fully understand that I can have her arrested at any point, and she's under subpoena, so. We'll have to see if we need to even keep her arrested, so. All right, let's,
So we would like to square with the issue of whether she wants a lawyer or not, because then I think the court has to
That-
appoint one, and then do the hearing pursuant to the statute, and then.
so let's go talk to her about that. Things may be different than the last time.
And were they able to get her with the information we provided?
I
No, she
don't
didn't
have
answer,
any.
she didn't answer the phones, and she didn't answer her work, and she didn't answer her work phone,
Okay,
so.
let's take a recess. Where's she at? Who do I call?
Oh, I think Sergeant Wigson can get her over here, I think she's a trooper post.
Yeah, as of about 10 minutes ago, she was at post using the restroom, and I've told her to bring her outside.
Okay, they're gonna bring her here out of custody, then out of
She
cuffs?
might even be here, Judge.
Yeah.
All right, bring her on in then.
Let's go see if she-
She would be your, they found Ms. Johnson.
Yeah. No, this is Misty. This is not,
it's
Misty.
Yeah, I don't know how they, what they got going on. We'll get it ready. Okay, please be seated, we're now on record. All right, ma'am, can you give your name for the court record?
Misty Johnson, MICYJOHNSON.
Okay, and I just want to talk to you about a few things. You recall testifying last time?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure you understand that even to testify this time, if you would like to have an attorney evaluate whether or not you have a constitutional right not to testify, you can request one, and I'll see if you're eligible to have one court appointed. If you don't think that's necessary, and the district attorney, for the record, Mr. Kalachak, it's your opinion that her testimony won't be any different and that she will not be subjecting herself to any sort of Fifth Amendment issues?
I expect, that, as with Mr. LaRue, I'll be asking the same questions as to the same subjects, although I have found that when you do a trial the second time, a little bit more information comes out, like with Mr. Almendinger, so I think he was a little bit longer the second time around, because there's a little bit more exploration, because now we have that fundamental knowledge we had from the first trial, and we have a little bit more knowledge as time goes by. Same subject matter, I believe. Same, as to the evidence tampering, same opinion that we can't charge somebody without having the corpus, that being the stuff that Mr. LaRue got rid of.
But however, if you think that your testimony could expose you to some potential charges and you would like to explore that, you are free to do that.
I probably should.
You know, 'cause I don't know, maybe things have changed, more information may come out in this trial, I don't know.
Yeah.
Nothing I heard last time would have exposed you to any criminal charges, so.
I don't know that I agree with that.
Well, at this point in time, it doesn't matter what you say, at this point in time, the state has basically not pursued any sort of, charges against her from her testimony last time.
We have not, I guess it depends how distrustful people are of the government, it's been since May, she testified, the cat was out of the bag for a number of months, we didn't do anything with the cat, and here she is.
Okay, well, why don't you raise your right hand, I'm gonna swear you in.
Please stand.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony that you will give in this case now before this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your full name and spell your first and last.
Okay. Mystique Johnson, MISTIQUEJOHNSON.
What's your occupation?
I'm an optician.
Okay, how much money, ma'am, have you made in the last, say, 4 months?
Not much. I just started back to work recently.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and appoint an attorney. She qualifies for counsel under AS 1885. I'll just let you talk to an attorney and we'll kind of go from there, okay?
Okay.
I'm not gonna keep her in custody. I think that she talks to an attorney. I don't see her leaving. She's under subpoena. And so by law, you need to be in contact with the district attorney who will be talking to your attorney.
I want to make sure, Judge, we have the right numbers, and I have some questions for her, because she told the police she'd try to contact her office, and I have some questions about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
That's
this may-
nothing
maybe
to
the-
subject her to any sort of criminal charges. So,
Right, the court might change its mind after hearing some of this, but ma'am, did you get a subpoena to testify in this case?
Yes.
And what directions did the subpoena give you?
It said to call Cherise or Cherie or Eve, and I contacted them, and I asked for either of those, and the woman on the phone said that Eve is no longer with your office, and that Cherise wasn't in. So
What day was this that you contacted?
I don't know, but I could probably scroll through my phone.
And so when you contacted the office, when you rang the office, what did you get?
Somebody answered, I told them what I was calling for. A gentleman
Okay.
answered. I don't remember their names.
What day did you contact the office?
Whatever day I was supposed to on the subpoena. Like I said, I can go through my phone. I don't have the subpoena with me. It's whatever time frame that I was supposed to call them. And
Some day that you don't remember when, you contact the office and some person whose name you don't remember answered the phone and said.
yeah, I would remember if, like I said, it's still on my phone. I can show you proof that I called your office.
Okay, all right, now, and what did they say again?
They said that Cherie wasn't, first it was a guy that answered. He transferred me to another woman. She said, Cherie's is not in, Eve's no longer with your office. I told her the circumstances, and I said, well, that's what she told me.
Okay.
Why would I make that up if I don't
I
know?
think you're wrong on that.
But,
Because you got it the other way around, but go ahead. I'm listening.
okay, well, this was, how long ago? I've kind of a lot
I don't
going
know, because
on.
you didn't tell me the date, but but go
Like I
ahead.
said, I can if you want me to go through my phone.
I would object.
Well, this goes to,
Well, first of all, the fact that one of the people left the office, whether or not she got the right one or she got mixed up, I mean, I think that actually goes to the fact that how would she know that somebody
is
left?
Mr. Stoller representing Dominic Johnson's mother too?
No, he's not.
Okay.
But this is getting combative.
Well, no, this goes to the bail. I want to make sure she shows up, Judge.
So
And
for bail, go ahead,
I mean,
finish it up.
this is a witness who potentially just, dealt with the clothing destruction and saw video. of the
Actually, I
sale.
didn't
witness
destroy
now.
any clothing.
But I know, ma'am. and I've
I'm
heard
not
you.
gonna let her, she's gonna testify.
Okay.
One way or another, I'll bring her here.
Yeah, I want to make sure
The
that.
question is, do I keep her in jail till that point?
Okay. And so after, now you have no idea whether this was this November or December when you
It
called?
wasn't December, it was in either October or November, when, like I said, when I got the subpoena.
And what did you do after?
I asked her, I told her the circumstances, and I said, so what am I supposed to do? She said, just wait and somebody will call you. I said, so you want me to wait until you call? She said, yes, somebody will be in contact with you.
Now, you knew your son's case was going to trial, right?
Yes, and I was told that I could not
Right,
attend.
you were here during the beginning of the trial.
At the first day, because I was told that
And
day
you
that I
know-
wasn't allowed to be
And
here.
you know that Ms. Weininger, Howard, and I are the prosecutors on the case because we talked to you before, right?
Yes,
Yeah. And if you don't get our receptionist, there's a phone tree now in our office. And it's been that way for a while where you can pick, like, for one of the DAs, press, 2.
well,
For Roman Kalichak, press 1. For Melissa Howard, press 7. So you know how to.
fortunately, I've never had to testify in trials before, so I'm not familiar with how you guys go about things. When I'm told from your office to wait for a phone call, I waited for a phone call.
And which number did you provide to us?
My current phone number, and you guys also have my house phone number,
Okay, can you give us those numbers?
521-5585 and 376-4850.
So you were just waiting for a phone call?
Yeah, like I was told to do.
Have a moment. Give me that 521 number again.
5585.
Tell him I need the attorney.
521.
5585.
And do you have a previous number, 521-5618?
Yes.
Is that no longer a good number?
No, I haven't had that number in a long time.
And what's your house number?
376-4850.
And what days are you at work nowadays? What's your work schedule look like?
It changes each couple weeks, but I've been,
This week, for example?
this week it's Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday,
And the hours?
9 to 5:30.
And where do you live nowadays?
Same place.
Which is what?
Have to give my address.
Yeah.
So
I
everybody
mean,
here.
if you wanna make bad, or if you don't want the judge to let
It's
you.
3175 North Old Squaw Loop, the same that it has been.
3175.
North Old Squaw Loop.
All right, I don't have any other questions of her at this point.
Okay, I'm gonna have her hold tight for a few minutes, we can go off record. I'm getting the name of her attorney right now. I'm gonna probably go on record and see if we can't call that person, and you can set up your time to speak with them, okay?
And I'm guessing that attorney is gonna want some basic information about this case and her involvement in the case,
I
before.
wanna make sure that she contacts him tomorrow, so get a number and everything, so.
I'm off
maybe
tomorrow, so
respond-
I can
Huh?
call. I'm off tomorrow, so I can call
Okay.
as soon as they open.
Yeah, well, let me just, we'll just go off record and get me that name, is that right?
Or a conflict with Mr. Bowman representing Misty Johnson, if he also represented Alana Peterson in her theft case. And he also gave her some guidance as to testimony during this trial.
Yeah, that's a problem.
All right, so I guess you may have a
She
conflict.
still waited sentencing, if I didn't correct.
I guess I just don't see where the conflict is.
I don't see it as a direct conflict, in the inquiries we had with Ms. Peterson, were totally different than the inquiries we had with Ms. Johnson. I really don't see the overlap in terms of protecting Ms. Johnson's rights at trial. And I don't think, I haven't talked to the court about the potential crimes, but we're not, as the court knows, the only intersection between Ms. Peterson and Ms. Johnson may be the burglary of Ms. Johnson's grandfather's place that we believe the defendant was involved in, and Ms. Peterson, and Devin Peterson, probably Misty Johnson. I don't know, but that might be the only,
If that connection's there, he can't represent two people.
Yeah,
you know,
I
the court probably is
Yeah,
better.
I mean, that just can't happen. Okay, Mr.
Oh.
So, sir, I'm just gonna go ahead and, we're gonna issue a new order, okay?
yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right, thanks a lot for being available.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, well, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and finish out your record.
So, yes, Judge, and you know, if the court needs to do more searching for an attorney.
I'm gonna have to have
I don't
somebody
think-
here by 8:30 tomorrow, so.
So a couple of things that I've noticed with Ms. Johnson, I mean, she's our witness because she's under our subpoena. Part of the problem I see is that as far as her home number, that might not be the best way to get a hold of her because we tried, no answer, no voicemail, so. And
She has a
then
cell phone number.
cell phone, we apparently have the old cell phone number. So maybe that's a partial explanation.
Okay,
But I would just say that basically, I'm at the DA's office all the time, so is Ms. Weininger Howard. We basically live there. Even on Friday, we were there all day. You know, today we're here,
Well-
yesterday. So it's not that hard for witnesses to get a hold of us. I know people like to say, well,
I
the
wasn't.
DA's office, they get, you know, routed around. But we decided to go with the phone tree for the very issue that if somebody gets to run around, they can go directly to my voicemail. If somebody gets to run around, they can pick Ms. Weininger Howard. We consciously made that decision.
what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna order Ms. Johnson to be here in the courtroom at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay,
You understand that?
Yeah.
You're under a court order. If you're not here, I
I'll be-
will have you arrested. and then
I have no problem
You
being
will
here.
not bail out. I will put a high cash bail on you and I will keep you.
I'll be here. I have no reason not to be.
All right, I'm gonna just trust her that she's gonna follow my orders.
And the other two things I want to tell the court, if an attorney is appointed, we can provide some discovery as it relates to this witness. We can't provide him all the materials in this case. It'd have to be a pick and choose. But I think this is a little bit different than, sometimes we have those statutory hearings, immunity hearings that the court does in camera. and the DA is kind of out of the loop because they wouldn't even know what the issues may be for a witness. With her, we pretty much know that the potential exposure, is the tampering. And then there could be potential exposure if she lied on the stand in the previous trial, because we're on the second trial. So if she said something that was a lie, there could be some potential for perjury. Those are the two things. We don't have any information that would implicate her in the assault or kidnapping of David Grunwald or his murder. So, you know, I think this is a situation where if the court has that hearing with the attorney and Ms. Johnson, it's a situation where we as the prosecutors on the case are pretty much aware of her concerns, because we sat down with her last time and talked about those concerns. So it's not a big secret.
Well, I'll also need a name if they do want to follow through with the request for immunity. You have to have that ready for me tomorrow.
We do, Judge, so I can't do it because I'm the prosecutor in this
Right, right.
case.
Just give me whoever's gonna be on call.
It's either Greg Olson or Tamara DeLucia.
It's still working in your office? You got-
What's that?
It's still working in your office?
Who?
It said they're still working in your office?
In our department, well, Mr. Olson's retiring actually soon, but I think he's still there, and I think, you know, I don't think anybody's got any.
Double check tonight and let me know in the morning.
I will give you their phone numbers,
Yes.
and then we can go from there, but.
If necessary, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go off record. We'll start at 9 o'clock tomorrow. This witness is under court order to be in the courtroom at 9. I will have an attorney here. You guys can have whatever information you wanna give that attorney. We'll see how long it takes. I'll have him report back to me later in the day. We'll decide what we have to do from that. That's kind of the step-by-step we'll go through. Okay?
And, and
You get information from the criminal department that states that they need a reason to pick Ms. Johnson up on the warrant, because it doesn't technically say she needs to be here until tomorrow. However, she is here. Did we need to recall that warrant? Was it served?
What we will do is I will
We'll see.
hold the warrant in abeyance until tomorrow morning. and-
Yeah, I think technically she was arrested on it and brought over here, but I'm, you
Was
know.
it already issued? It already got issued and it was served, you guys, the troopers had the
Yeah.
warrant?
Your Honor, yes, they picked her up at her, I guess, her place of
At my
employment,
job.
and they brought her here.
Okay.
Which we provided.
And so we did try calling, we called those numbers, and again, we couldn't get through. So we did make some effort not to have trooper time spent to contact Ms. Johnson and have her brought over here. We'd rather not do it that way, again, I wanna reiterate that.
Well, I don't think she wants to be picked up tomorrow.
No.
I will,
I think you made it clear she needs to be here tomorrow morning.
she'll be here at 9, and then for Tarp criminal, we can either withdraw the warrant for her, or Alex can get served at this point, it's not gonna be so.
Very good.
All right, so warrant squash, withdrawn, whatever you wanna call it.
Very good.
Okay? All right, so we'll just keep the warrants, have it here tomorrow if we need it, but for now, it's not out there, okay?
Okay.
All right, we'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Off record.